Chapter 661 Yi Chen's Heavenly Tribulation. More than 20 days later, hundreds of figures descended upon this massive mountain range. The vast majority of these figures were from the rotating pill realm, while at the forefront were 4 young late-stage heavenly saints. At this moment, these hundreds of rotating pill cultivators looked up to the 4 great heavenly saints with admiration and respect in their eyes, and they also began to speak in low voices. The 4 great renowned heavenly saints from our Dragon Star continent's heavenly origin domain are finally going to settle their scores here at the Blue Gold Mountain Range. A battle at the summit of Blue Gold Mountain. To witness such a grand event, we are truly blessed with great fortune. Rumor has it they have never crossed hands before, but none have been defeated within the heavenly saint realm. It's truly hard to say who among these undefeated heavenly saints is the strongest. While these hundreds of rotating pills were buzzing with discussion, the 4 great heavenly saints with flying hair in front of them exchanged glances, their eyes also brimming with the desire to do battle. Since the Dragon Star Divine Institute will only take one of us 4, we must determine who is superior. A black-clad youth holding an ancient sword said indifferently. Explore new worlds at Novelbin. Calm. Another gray-clothed youth laughed. Hee. As we agreed. Whoever among us is the strongest will win the spot to enter the Dragon Star Divine Institute. The Dragon Star Divine Institute is renowned far and wide among the third-tier Divine Institutes in the Divine Kingdom. People from other continents yearn to cultivate there. In previous years, they never accepted heavenly saints. Now that this opportunity has arisen, I, Lin Chenfeng, shall secure it. Fellow Taoist Lin Chenfeng, the spot won't be decided by bragging. The tallest among the 4 great heavenly saints, a youth in a blue robe, spoke with a light chuckle, flicking his fingers on a green flute he held, clearly looking down on the other 3. The last of the 4 great heavenly saints to speak was a woman in white, who didn't waste words. We'll know to whom the spot belongs after the battle. Ha! If even Xia Xianzi says so, what are we hesitating for? Let's get started. We pair off and fight. Whoever stands till the end is the strongest. Begin the battle. The eyes of the 4 great heavenly saints were full of fighting spirit, ready to test their skills against each other. Just at that moment, however, an abrupt change occurred. From a nearby mountain peak, there came a sudden and earth-shattering roar. This breathtaking roar caused the several hundred rotating pill cultivators watching from a distance to tremble in fright, and the 4 great heavenly saints, all full of their own superiority and eager to determine who was best, also changed their expressions drastically. As their complexions violently shifted, these hundreds of individuals saw endless auras of heaven and earth rushing toward the peak from where the roar emanated. They could even see the sky above the mountain start to gather a surge of ominously dark thunderclouds. In less than a moment, the terrifyingly dark clouds had amassed over an area of more than 100 miles and were still expanding. Such an astonishing sight even enveloped all the warriors in the shadow of these fearsome thunderclouds. This scene sent the several hundred rotating pills and the 4 great heavenly saints into such a panic that they hurriedly flew back, leaving the range of the thunderclouds before coming to a halt, now watching the mountain where the roar originated from a safer distance. Heaven! Thunderclouds! These are extremely formidable thunderclouds. Could it be that some senior is about to undergo tribulation here? Judging by the level of these thunderclouds, they are far more terrifying than the 9th heavenly tribulation clouds that I glimpsed from afar when an 8th tribulation true God was attempting to break through to the 9th. Could it be divine tribulation clouds? Is this a 9th tribulation true God attempting to break through to the God King realm? Lin Chenfeng blurted out in disbelief. No, these are not divine tribulation clouds. Legend has it that when divine tribulation clouds start to form, they flash with 3 different colors of light. This thundercloud looks more like the heavenly tribulation level. The blue-robed heavenly saint frowned deeply, staring at the gathering thunderclouds in the sky, and spoke with utmost seriousness. The black-clad youth holding the ancient sword seemed unable to believe it. Heavenly tribulation thunderclouds? But how can the heavenly tribulation thunderclouds spread across hundreds of miles to this frightening extent? And they're still expanding. The white-dressed female heavenly saint, who had been quite silent so far, showed a look of utmost shock. To call it the heavenly tribulation and yet reach the level of the divine tribulation. I fear that the senior who will soon face this tribulation is an utmost genius, one who can summon thunderclouds stronger than his realm should allow. Having observed various heavenly tribulations, I feel that this senior originally faced quite low-level thunderclouds. Yet, he has managed to provoke thunderclouds at the level of divine tribulation. This indicates that this senior might be a lower-level true god capable of contending with the frighteningly powerful 9 tribulation true gods, perhaps even battling those in the god-king realm. What? The words of the lady in white, the heavenly saint Xia Xianzi, completely shocked the other 3 heavenly saints. To combat the formidable 9th heavenly tribulation true gods, and even the divine kings with a lower true god realm strength. Such talent capable of battling across so many realms is undoubtedly among the elite in the divine kingdom. How could they appear on our modest dragon star continent? While the 4 heavenly saints found it entirely inconceivable, the hundreds of rotating pills were also staring dumbfoundedly as the tribulation clouds in the entire sky finally took complete form. The extent of the tribulation clouds even reached a terrifying diameter of 500 li, and were absolutely thicker than several thousand feet. The moment the immense tribulation clouds formed, terrifying black lightning began to slash out from within, crashing down continuously upon the mountain peak below with booming sounds. Crack! Amidst the thunderous clamor, the terrifying black lightning had even shattered the peak of the mountain, and as more thunderous sounds of even larger heavenly tribulation lightning resonated, endless fearsome cyclones began to blow from all directions toward the mountain, as if wanting to completely tear it apart. This scene frightened the hundreds of rotating pills and the 4 heavenly saints, who had already retreated a good distance, causing them to fly even further back into the void. The situation also startled several powerful true gods who were cultivating in nearby caves, waking them from their meditations as they flew out from the caves. Among these powerful true gods were 8th tribulation true gods as well as 7th tribulation true gods who, upon emerging, instantly darted into the void. Witnessing the fearsome specter of tribulation clouds in the void, these true gods displayed shocked expressions. Once they grabbed the heavenly saints and learned what had transpired, the hearts of the true gods were shaken. Could it be that a genius from another star continent happened to pass by our dragon star continent and is undergoing tribulation here? Heaven, at such a level they could easily annihilate us without effort, and we absolutely must not provoke them. The true gods immediately ordered the 4 heavenly saints and the hundreds of rotating pills not to interfere with the entity undergoing tribulation. The 4 heavenly saints, who had originally planned to spar here, were now caught by these true gods as easily as chickens, with no strength to resist, and the thoughts of competition had long since vanished into thin air. Upon hearing the commands of these true gods, they nodded in agreement. Esteemed predecessors, we absolutely dare not interfere with the transcendent undergoing tribulation. Hearing the words of the 4 heavenly saints, the true gods then released them, and turned their gazes solemnly toward the front. The divine tribulation has arrived. That being must be about to undergo the tribulation. As the true gods spoke, 2 figures suddenly flew up from the shattered mountaintop. One was a youth in green clothes with black hair flying behind him, and the other was a gigantic spiritual sparrow. The youth spoke to the spiritual sparrow. Xiaojiu, take the ice snow jade pendant and retreat to the side for now. This tribulation is a bit different. I must face it seriously now. Upon hearing the youth's voice, the sparrow nodded, eyes filled with worry, and after transmitting a few messages to the youth, it flew to the side. As the spiritual sparrow's gaze turned to the true gods, as well as the 4 heavenly saints and the hundreds of rotating pills behind it, everyone heard the voice of the sparrow. No one is allowed to approach the tribulation cloud area or else, do not blame me for striking you down. The calm words of the sparrow even caused the true gods' expressions to change drastically. The true gods repeatedly voiced their agreement, having a feeling that this sparrow was even more fearsome than some of the 9th tribulation true gods they had encountered. Annihilating them would indeed be as easy as blowing away dust. Seeing that the true gods, heavenly saints, and rotating pills were merely watching from afar, not daring to come closer, The sparrow then turned its head again and looked towards the youth beneath the heavenly origin domain's tribulation clouds in the void. Who would have thought that the first heavenly tribulation triggered by Yi-chun would reach such a level? It appears to be more than just the first heavenly tribulation. Most likely, it's the legendary, compound heavenly tribulation formed by the superposition of multiple layers. The power of this tribulation is simply equivalent to a divine tribulation. With Yi-chen's current strength, it could be very dangerous. The worry in Xiaojiu's eyes deepened. This spiritual sparrow was, of course, Xiaojiu. And the youth who had flown into the void to face the heavenly tribulation was, of course, Yi-chun. Having come to the mountain for cultivation, especially after entering the life origin wheel, Yi-chen's strength had increased every single day. With the life origin wheel offering 100-fold time acceleration, he had cultivated for over 6 years at this accelerated pace, which was the equivalent of 24 days passing outside, and his strength had incredibly surged by an unfathomable degree. He finally felt the moment for his breakthrough to the true God realm drawing near. Under these circumstances, Yi-chun cultivated a few more days within the life origin wheel until, sensing that the divine tribulation was imminent and he could not ignore it any longer, he could no longer continue his cultivation within the life origin wheel and had to come out. Chapter 662. Breakthrough. Crisis. Above the void heaven. In the blink of an eye, Yi-chun flew under the endless tribulation clouds, and at this moment, the boundless terrifying hurricane and the dreadful celestial lightning had already struck him like a waterfall. Yi-chun stood beneath the tribulation clouds without making any moves, but suddenly, an endless amount of stellar power surged out of him, transforming into a star-colored light shield that enveloped him completely. Every terrifying hurricane and every bolt of celestial lightning exploded upon contact with the star-colored light shield surrounding Yi-chun, turning the entire void where he was into a chaotic sea of true chi shattering. Although the endless hurricanes and tribulation lightning were blocked, Yi-chun was not the slightest bit relieved. He knew that this was just the beginning, and greater tests were still to come. Yi-chun was dealing with it in all seriousness, while those true gods, heavenly saints, and hundreds of pill-spinning martial artists watching him undergo the celestial tribulation were all astounded. Even the first wave of dreadful tribulation lightning, which was just the beginning, was something none of the martial artists present dared to claim they could withstand. But they saw with their own eyes that Yi-chun easily made the sky full of tribulation lightning and the terrifying hurricane burst apart without even using his full strength. A master reveals himself with a single move. Just seeing the initial resistance against the celestial tribulation, the martial artists in the arena knew how terrifying the combat power of the young man beneath the tribulation clouds above the void heaven was. Even Xiaojiu's eyes flickered with surprise. She had sensed the arrival of the terrifying celestial tribulation earlier and was extremely worried for Yi-chun, who had not spoken to her about his cultivation inside the life origin wheel after flying out of it. But just seeing this single move, Xiaojiu knew that Yi-chen's strength must have increased dozens of times more than before he entered the life origin wheel. Otherwise, there was no way he could have handled the first wave of dreadful celestial tribulation so easily. Yi-chun is indeed an unparalleled genius, but the more talented one is, the more terrifying the celestial tribulation they invoke. The previous tribulation was extremely fearsome already, and I fear that the final tribulation Yi-chun brings upon himself will be even more dreadful than I anticipated. Yi-chen's strength has increased so much, which is indeed a big surprise, but if the level of the celestial tribulation is higher, it is also a great crisis. I hope that Yi-chun can get through this and transform and ascend to become a true god. While Xiaojiu's thoughts were racing, after Yi-chun had blocked the first wave of dreadful tribulation, the second wave, even more terrifying, descended upon him. This time, the tribulation lightning turned a greenish hue, and even the raging hurricane directly pierced into Yi-chen's divine soul. This round of celestial tribulation, sensing the strength of Yi-chen's true chi, bred an attack on the divine soul. Boom! 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 Under the slashing of the dozens of feet-thick greenish tribulation lightning and the brutal hurricane assaulting his divine soul, Yi-chun pinched a spell with his hands, and 2 treasures flew directly to the space above his head. These 2 treasures, one a palm-sized skull, and the other a black ancient banner with a demon pattern painted on it. These two items were precisely the treasures of Simafeng, who was killed by the ice puppet. In the life origin will Yi Chun cultivated while also refining these two treasures. Now facing the descent of the celestial tribulation, Yi Chun directly brought out these two items. These treasures retained only a bit of their divine might, which was not much use to Yi Chun, so he prepared to let them exert their last bit of power. Awoo! 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 Once Yi Chun activated the ancient banner, countless demonic shadows burst out of the banner and flew wildly toward the celestial lightning in the void. As for the palm-sized skull, it shot out relentless green rays, bombarding the terrifying hurricane. Boom! 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 Chaotic explosions resonated through the entire heavens and earth, and the dreadful tribulation lightning, continuing to surge in the sky, was also continuously extinguished until the energy from the ancient banner and the skull were completely exhausted. Yi Chun successfully resisted dozens of waves of tribulation lightning and the accompanying hurricane blasts. At that moment, the tribulation lightning changed again, becoming more dense and powerful, forming once more, and this time they directly attacked Yi Chun's physical body. After withstanding two waves of heavenly tribulation thunder, Yi Chun could feel that although his combat power had been compromised, he had also gained something. That was a slight transformation in his true chi and divine soul brought about by the tribulation thunder. Yi Chun knew this was the function of the heavenly tribulation. With destruction came rebirth. As long as he could withstand the heavenly tribulation, these transformations would completely metamorphose him into a true god. With this thought, facing the third wave of the terrifying physical body tribulation, Yi Chun's entire body burst forth with endless snowy white icy sealing divine power and pitch-black undying divine body power. Encased in these two great powers, Yi Chun let out a long howl to the sky, then flew straight into the densely packed heavenly tribulation thunder in the sky, as if bathing in the endless thunder of the tribulation. This scene left the several true gods watching Yi Chun's tribulation from afar with their mouths agape. When they underwent their heavenly tribulation, they had only dared to resist from below, continuously blocking the descending tribulation thunder. Now, the youth before them had flown straight into the ocean of tribulation thunder. This situation was far more terrifying in terms of the density and power of the tribulation thunder than what they had endured. Naturally, the resulting transformation was also much stronger. Boom! 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 Under the watchful eyes of countless spectators, Yi Chun, having flown into the ocean of tribulation thunder, reached out and tore apart one strip of tribulation thunder after another. Within the tribulation thunder, points of light merged into Yi Chun's body. After dozens of waves of heavenly tribulation thunder descended, Yi Chun once again let out a long howl in the void. At this time, everyone seemed to hear a bang, like the sound of divine gates opening and divine power pouring down. Read new chapters at novelbin.com. All saw the terrifying tribulation clouds that shrouded a radius of 500 miles suddenly shoot out a brilliant column of light, enveloping Yi Chun entirely within it. Yi Chun couldn't help but to continuously spin his body within the column of light. And with that spinning, Yi Chun's body gradually emitted the light of divine power, something only a true god possessed. This light persisted for longer than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea before dissipating, and from Yi Chun's eyes burst forth endless divine light, even shattering a distant mountain peak. This scene, witnessed by those heavenly saints and true gods, left them completely astonished and shouting out loud. This is the scene of a heavenly saint ascending to true god status. Is this senior a heavenly saint? Heavens! How could a heavenly saint trigger such a terrifying tribulation cloud? How could the divine light produced upon ascending to true God be so strong? In their astonishment, these heavenly saints and true gods noticed that the tribulation clouds, which normally dissipated after the transformation and breakthrough, did not do so after Yi Chun's emergence of divine light and transformation into a true god. They recondensed into tribulation thunder instead. This scene had only been seen by these heavenly saints and true gods in ancient texts and heard of from legends whispered within the mighty divine kingdoms. This is the stacking of layered tribulations. Could it be this senior not only ascended from heavenly saint to true God, but is also continuing to break through within the true God realm? Heavens! It must be so. Only then could one trigger the layers of tribulation clouds. Such situations, they can only occur if one has boosted their combat power to an unimaginably extreme level before the breakthrough, something only legendary figures could accomplish. Even the top geniuses in the divine kingdoms could not possibly trigger the layered tribulation clouds continuously. In the midst of these heavenly saints and true God screams, Xiaojiu also transformed into human form, her fists clenched tightly. Meanwhile, inside the ice jade pendant, Zhou, Bing Yi, Bing Wu, Bing Qi, and the little monkey all looked outside nervously, watching the scene of Yi Chen's tribulation. Because they knew the multi-layered tribulations to come were probably the most terrifying yet. Indeed, once Yi Chen's body had surged with divine light, and he had broken through into the true God realm, the tribulation thunder born from the clouds in the sky was tens of times more powerful than before. Even the accompanying hurricane, with its slightest motion, blasted pieces of mountain ranges into smithereens. Just when Yi Chen had no time to experience the change in essence, energy, and spirit that came with entering the true God realm, nor to transform this metamorphosis into actual combat power, he saw the tribulation thunder and accompanying hurricane strike down above his head once again. At that moment, Yi Chen reached out, and a half-piece of silver-white crystal appeared in his hand. This half-piece of silver-white crystal was none other than the remaining, not yet fully consumed Thunder Beast crystal, left to Yi Chen by the fallen Thunder Ancient Ape. Chapter 663-4 Tribulations True God. Faced with a more terrifying heavenly tribulation descending, Yi Chen would of course have to come up with new, stronger ways to cope. Boom! 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 When divine power from Yi Chen's body merged into the Thunder Beast crystal, it immediately activated the crystal, producing a series of terrible ripples of bright light. In an instant, the dreadful light from the Thunder Beast crystal collided with the lightning of the heavenly tribulation and the accompanying tornado that descended from the void heaven. For a moment, a scene far more chaotic than the sea of tempestuous true qi that Yi Chen had faced during the first heavenly tribulation unfolded, descending directly upon them. The world around Yi Chen had turned into a dark, gloomy realm where only flashes of blinding light could be seen and the endless sound of the tumultuous wind tearing was heard. The martial artists in the rotating pill realm and the heavenly saint realm watching Yi Chen endure his tribulation from afar could no longer clearly see what was happening. And the true gods were completely agape. They couldn't imagine how they would have crossed such a scene themselves. Perhaps, most likely, they would have fallen directly in this heavenly tribulation. Closest to Yi Chen, Xiaojiu, as well as Zhou, Bing Yi, Bing Wu, Bing Qi, and the little monkey inside the ice snow jade pendant, had eyes full of immense worry. They did not know if Yi Chen could withstand even more formidable and terrifying layers of heavenly tribulation. He can withstand it, he must be able to, Xiaojiu muttered, as countless eyes watched, after dozens of waves of heavenly tribulation lightning had exhausted their strikes. When the dark gloomy world began to reveal the scene within, everyone saw that Yi Chen was still standing under the clouds of tribulation, unshaken. He blocked it. Yi Chen blocked it. Zhou inside the ice snow jade pendant, upon seeing Yi Chen's figure emerge safely, leaped up with joy. No sooner had her words fallen than the dreadful clouds of tribulation in the void heaven seemed to be pressed together, rapidly converging toward the center. As they converged, the color of the storm clouds changed from a thick black to a terrible starry color. Seeing the discoloration of the clouds, the four heavenly saints and the few true gods exclaimed in shock. The heavenly tribulation is changing color. This is a rare sight even among multi-layered heavenly tribulations. This means that the attack power of this heavenly tribulation has reached the level of a god king. I fear that this final wave of tribulation will strike down all the power of the tribulation clouds. If the young senior enduring the tribulation can overcome it, his cultivation will surge once again from the first tribulation, true God. If not, he fears he might fall right here. As their words fell, they directly saw terrible streaks of starry-colored heavenly tribulation lightning dart through the void. Though this dreadful starry-colored heavenly tribulation lightning was somewhat weaker than the lightning that the thunder ancient ape faced when breaking through to the middle god-king realm, it was definitely beyond an ordinary ninth heavenly tribulation. Even stronger than the first divine tribulation many nine tribulations true gods faced when attacking the god-king realm. In the blink of an eye, these streaks of starry-colored heavenly tribulation lighting completely struck Yi Chun. Crack! A loud shattering noise startled the hearts of numerous martial artists who were focused on Yi Chun. They saw that the piece of thunder beast crystal in Yi Chun's hand, which he used to block the heavenly tribulation lightning, had exhausted its energy and shattered after withstanding several strikes of starry-colored lightning. More starry-colored lightning of the heavenly tribulation continued to fall unremittingly, and had Yi Chun no other means, they would certainly be unstoppable. Just then, everyone saw a sword shadow suddenly fly out from between Yi Chun's eyebrows. A flying sword. It's Yi Chun's life-bound flying sword, Zhou Yu exclaimed upon seeing the sword emerge. However, Xiaojiu still looked incredibly worried. Yi Chun deploying his flying sword means he's about to use the heaven-reaching divine art, 9 Swords of Annihilation. But he has only cultivated its second strike, and even with his greatly increased strength, I fear it won't be enough to withstand the power of the tribulation lightning descending all at once from this multi-layered heaven. Unless he can cultivate a stronger third strike of 9 Swords of Annihilation and deploy even greater combat power. As Xiaojiu spoke, the sword shadow that flew from Yi Chun's forehead suddenly flickered crazily, and in an instant, it turned into 100 sword shadows. Then, these 100 sword shadows twisted and tore through pieces of the void, even ripping apart the starry-colored lightning of heavenly tribulation descending towards Yi Chun. Is this the third strike of 9 Swords of Annihilation? Xiaojiu leaped up upon seeing the killing move Yi Chun had never shown before. Rumors say, the 9 Swords of Annihilation become harder to cultivate as one progresses. Yi Chun was also cultivating true qi in his life origin wheel, having little time to understand the sword technique. How did he master the third strike of 9 Swords of Annihilation? While Xiaojiu was leaping with joy and speaking, Yi Chun, who had deployed the crimson fire, flying sword in the void heaven, looked up at the persistent heavenly tribulation lightning with an extremely lucid gaze. Let's battle. With 8 years of arduous cultivation in the life origin wheel, I have now opened up 1,853 stellar vortex spaces within my body, and have absorbed over 1/5 of the stellar power in the stellar divine diagram. And I have cultivated the primordial chapter of the primordial star scripture to minor accomplishment. This stellar power, combined with my divine soul power, is enough to support me in executing the third strike of 9 Swords of Annihilation, void shattering, that I have comprehended in my life origin wheel, for the duration of a cup of tea. If a cup of tea's time is not enough to withstand the heavenly tribulation, then I fear I'll have to use the last secret treasure I've consecrated, the ice seal puppet. Yi Chun had felt the distinct nature of this heavenly tribulation early on, and though he continuously employed various techniques at his disposal, there were still some ace moves he kept in reserve, waiting to use at the last moment. One of these ace moves was the third sword of the 9 Swords of Annihilation, void shattering. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As Yi Chun executed the crimson fire flying sword and activated the third sword of the 9 Swords of Annihilation, void shattering, he managed to tear apart the incoming star-colored lightning of the heavenly tribulation. The sword move void shattering even caused the space around Yi Chun to fracture violently as it unleashed its fury. Anything that entered this fractured space, be it the lightning of the heavenly tribulation or the accompanying tornadoes, was instantly reduced to nothingness by the third sword of the 9 Swords of Annihilation. Indeed, the third sword void shattering proved to be much more powerful than the first sword mountains and rivers chaos, and the second sword Wandiding. This strike even possessed the attack level of a lower god king. When the stellar power within Yi Chun fully erupted and the third sword of the 9 Swords of Annihilation was completely deployed, the area around Yichun had become a realm of void fragmentation. For a moment, an equilibrium was reached. Thunderclouds in the sky continuously spawned new lightning bolts, and as these bolts entered the range of Yichen's void-tearing sword move, they were all shredded into non-existence, while below the sword move, Yichun kept spurting out stellar power and divine soul power, launching continuous attacks with his sword move. Everyone knew that this was the final confrontation phase between Yichun and the heavenly tribulation. Either Yichun would muster his strength to completely withstand the heavenly tribulation, or he would no longer hold out, and his technique would be broken through. At this time, Xiaojiu, Bingyi, Zhouyu, and a few others who cared the most about Yichun were on tenterhooks. They did not know which way the scales of victory would tip. Boom! 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 All they could hear were the sounds of the void continuously sending down lightning bolts of the heavenly tribulation, and the sounds of the void being torn asunder, with the lightning bolts being ground into nothingness. This scene continued for the better part of an incense stick's burning time until Yichen's stellar power was nearly depleted and he was about to use his final ice seal puppet. But then it finally stopped. Bang! Bang! Then, everyone saw the thunderclouds in the sky completely dissipate, and from between the heavens, two sounds emerged as the divine sex that had aided Yichen's entry into the true God realm opened once more, and divine beams of light shot out again. Discover stories with Novelbin. Calm. After the divine light enveloped Yichen again, surges of divine power descended from the polar heaven above, all fusing into Yichen's body. Inside Yichen's body, the three signs of life, essence, qi, and spirit began undergoing unbelievable changes, and Yichen's realm zoomed forward in leaps and bounds, breaking through from the first tribulation true God level all the way to the four tribulations true God level. The multilayered heavenly tribulation had brought Yichun an incredible breakthrough, charging through several bottlenecks and barriers, reaching the pinnacle of the lower-tier true gods. For tribulation's true God, when they saw the four circular divine light shadows slowly emerging and then disappearing behind Yichun, signifying his entrance into the four tribulations true God level, the onlookers, including several heavenly saints and true gods, were completely shocked, their eyes nearly popping out. They had witnessed Yichen's progression from the late stages of the heavenly saint realm to the true God realm, and now they saw him directly break through from a first tribulation true God to a four tribulations true God. This was truly unheard of. Moreover, considering the terrifying level of the multilayered heavenly tribulation Yichun had just withstood, they realized that they might have truly witnessed a miracle. It was a significant risk leading to a great opportunity, a miraculous breakthrough. This young senior, even as a four tribulations true God, will definitely surpass countless nine tribulations true gods. Perhaps his combat power is now strong enough to fight against a lower god king, and he might even be able to defeat one. These heavenly saints and true gods couldn't forget Yichen's terrifying sword move that could tear the lightning of the heavenly tribulation to shreds. They knew it was a sword move that definitely surpassed the combat power of the true God realm. However, the stronger the power, the more dangerous the upcoming heavenly tribulations. If the next heavenly tribulation is as terrifying as this one, even if it's not multilayered but just a single layer, it will be many times more formidable than the current one. After all, advancing from the four tribulations true God to the five tribulations true God is already a huge challenge, let alone his extraordinary situation where his combat power far exceeds his realm. If this young senior cannot counter the next heavenly tribulation with as many tactics as he did this time, he might still face a great crisis. This is the nature of the heavenly tribulation, just like the divine tribulation. It greatly promotes peerless geniuses and poses great risks. Many peerless geniuses in the divine kingdom have perished under increasingly powerful heavenly and divine tribulations one after another. These thoughts filled the hearts of the heavenly saints and true gods with awe. Chapter 664, The Battle of Divine City arrives. These heavenly saints and true gods knew that each heavenly tribulation would be more terrifying than the last. Above the void heaven, Yichun, who had just broken through to the status of a four tribulations true god, was certainly aware of the crises he must face later on. Yichun, in his early years, cultivated within the dream realm of the creation chessboard and had always trained up to and beyond an upper god king level. He was certainly familiar with the pattern of the heavenly tribulations. Therefore, even though he had suddenly broken through to the four tribulations true god level, Yi Chen's face remained somewhat somber. He had used almost all his techniques to deal with this heavenly tribulation, leaving only one or two tactics unused. In the future, to confront the next heavenly tribulation, these techniques would definitely not suffice, and he would certainly need to prepare many more. Despite his somber expression, Yi Chen, of course, would not be discouraged. No matter how great the difficulties he had encountered, he had overcome them all. He had just broken through a realm and had ample time to prepare. He certainly would not fear or dread the next heavenly tribulation. With strength, he must become stronger. Faced with a great crisis, he would eliminate it with absolute power. My true Qi techniques, having reached minor accomplishment in the primordial chapter, just need to be cultivated to great accomplishment or even perfection, and perhaps step into the even mightier fifth chapter of the primordial star scripture. By then, even facing a heavenly tribulation at the level of an upper god king would most likely pose no problem at all. My divine soul techniques include the 9 swords of annihilation. I have only cultivated up to the 3rd sword. I can continue to cultivate further, mastering all of the 9 swords' heaven-reaching divine art. By then, my combat power would probably be sufficient to battle an upper god king. And there's my powerful physical skills of the undying divine body. Once I've dealt with the battle in the divine city and the matters in the 9 suns ancient land, it will be time to seek out Lord Tianyun for the remaining chapters of the undying divine body. Yi Chen considered all kinds of methods that could enhance his strength and prepare him for the next heavenly tribulation. With essence, qi, and spirit, the 3 signs of life, he still had techniques that could push through breakthroughs, continuously boosting his combat power. After my intensive cultivation in the 100-fold time flow rate of the life origin wheel, my original combat power was already on par with an upper god king. Once I fully transformed the essence, qi, and spirit enhanced by this breakthrough into combat power, I'll have no fear facing a lower god king like Sima Feng again. Back in the Undersea Divine Palace, Elder Ku Du said that only those who can defeat an ordinary lower god king would have a chance to attempt entering the number 1 divine institute among the 9, the Supreme Divine Institute. Now, my strength is finally sufficient to make a charge for the Supreme Divine Institute. Yi Chen came to the Divine Kingdom primarily to join one of the 9 divine institutes. Especially the number 1 divine institute, Supreme Divine Institute, which Elder Ku Du reminded him about, is Yi Chen's primary target. Previously, Yi Chen was still lingering in the later stages of the Heavenly Saint and was uncertain about passing the assessment of the 9 divine institutes, but now he felt considerably more confident. There was still some time before the examination of the 9 divine institutes. He still had the chance to seek opportunities in the 9 suns ancient land through the battle in the divine city, and he might also try to find Lord Tianyun. By enhancing his strength and stockpiling more techniques before the examination of the 9 divine institutes, it might not be impossible for him to truly enter the Supreme Divine Institute. One step at a time. Keep walking step by step. As long as I join one of the 9 divine institutes, my chances of surmounting the heavenly tribulation and even the divine tribulation to achieve the God King Venerable level will be much greater. I must cherish this opportunity and rapidly enhance my strength to quickly traverse the star domain and meet Zhang Yao. Yi Chen could not forget that there was a girl waiting for him in the 10,000 beasts domain. The faster he increased his strength, the shorter the days of separation from Zhang Yao would be. Yi Chen knew that Zhang Yao must also be continuously enhancing her cultivation under the guidance of Mrs. He and the 9 female divine venerables, eager to meet him as soon as possible. If the girl was doing this much, Yi Chen, of course, would not relax his efforts. After his mind whirred with thoughts, Yi Chen's fingers moved slightly, and a ring appeared in his palm. Your next journey awaits at Novelbin. Calm. This ring was none other than the Ice Treasure Divine Ring, a divine artifact that Yi Chen had acquired back in the Minor Pole Sky. Besides the Ice Treasure Divine Ring, Yi Chen also obtained treasures like the Thunder Gourd, Purple Lightning Divine Sword, and Heavenly Origin Divine Stone in the Minor Pole Sky. The purple lightning divine sword was always in use by Yi Chen, and he naturally wore the heavenly origin divine stone, which nurtured and strengthened his essence, qi, and spirit. Compared with these, the Thunder Gourd and the Ice Treasure divine ring, which Yi Chen exchanged from the Ice Wing tribe's true god Bing Ao, became somewhat less useful. Yi Chen had barely used the Thunder Gourd since, after all, such a treasure that could only slay lower-level true gods is now surpassed by a mere gesture of his current combat power. Yi Chen planned to find an opportunity to sell the Thunder Gourd along with some treasures from the deceased Sima Feng storage ring to gather some divine stones to power the Ice Seal puppets, for they would continuously consume divine stones. As for the Ice Treasure divine ring, with its three remarkable effects of treasure hunting, concealment, and space, it was slightly more useful than the Thunder Gourd. This time, Yi Chen had let Xiaojiu with others like Bing Yi and the little monkey avoid the heavenly tribulation using the Ice Treasure divine ring, keeping the ring with him. What Yi Chen was utilizing was the spatial effect of the Ice Treasure divine ring. At this moment, looking into the Ice Treasure divine ring, one could see over 20 massive, black and red flying ants, each several feet long, flying within the space of the divine ring. These huge black and red flying ants were none other than the mutated netherworld ant eggs that Yi Chen found in the Five Elements Mountain, which had hatched into mutated flying ants. Initially, Yi Chen had acquired dozens of these black and red spherical eggs, containing hundreds of ant larvae. Since leaving the Five Elements Mountain, Yi Chen had kept these eggs within a spatial treasure, slowly incubating them with his true qi. Now, after the accelerated time of cultivation within the Void Celestial Gourd and the recently completed cultivation within the Life Origin Wheel, a few days before Yi Chen emerged from the Life Origin Wheel, he noticed that these long-awaited eggs had finally hatched into a new breed of flying ants. Although only a little over 20 flying ants hatched from the hundreds of eggs, these new ants were indeed, as Yi Chen had anticipated, not normal netherworld ants. All of them had mutated. It's very likely that the mutation resulted from the fusion of the netherworld ant eggs with those of the flame ants during their combat, giving rise to a previously unknown type of flying ant. When Yi Chen discovered these mutated flying ants, the heavenly tribulation was already brewing. He felt that these ants seemed to be excited by the tribulation, as if they wanted to devour the power of the tribulation itself. It was because of this that he brought with him the newly hatched mutated ants that he had not yet had the chance to study. Sure enough, during the tribulation, Yi Chen really sensed that the 20-odd mutated ants hiding in the Ice Treasure divine ring were indeed devouring a significant amount of the heavenly tribulation. Originally, the ant crystals produced by the netherworld ants were only effective for those at the rotating pill realm, so Yi Chen could no longer use them. But now, seeing that the mutated ants could even devour the power of a tribulation, naturally sparked Yi Chen's interest in this entirely new breed of mutated ants. Having devoured a substantial amount of the tribulation's power, these ants seem to have increased in strength, Yi Chen thought. Each one now possesses the power of about the midway point of a heavenly saint. Though this power isn't much, their ability to devour tribulations could prove useful when I face the next, even more terrifying tribulation. Let's call this new breed of mutated ants Scarlet Ming ants. Perhaps they could be an important means for me in the future. After examining the flying ants for a while, Yi Chen put away the Ice Treasure divine ring and secured it on his person again. Now that these ants had devoured some of the tribulation's power, they had enough to refine for a long time. Yi Chen planned to take some time out to study these Scarlet Ming ants more closely. Yi Chen's contemplation on enhancing his capabilities and his assessment of the Scarlet Ming ants only took a few moments. By that time, the clouds of the heavenly tribulation had dissipated following his breakthrough to the four tribulations' true God, vanishing without a trace. Gazing upon the mountain range that had returned to its clear and bright state, Yi Chen smiled and descended from the skies of the void, walking toward Xiaojiu. Considering the time, the battle for Divine City isn't far off. It's about time to bring Zhou Yu back to circulation of Heaven Divine City to participate in the battle for the city. As Yi Chen's thoughts raced, Xiaojiu, carrying the ice snow jade pendant, flew towards him excitedly. Yi Chen, You've broken through to a 4 tribulations true God. That's incredible. I bet City Lord Nye will be shocked when he sees you at the battle for Divine City in circulation of Heaven Divine City. When Yi-chan and Xiaojiu met, they quickly spoke with Zhou Yu, Bing Yi, Bing Wu, Bing Qi, and the little monkey inside the ice snow jade pendant. Then Yi-chen's gaze swept over the few true gods who had been watching from afar, as well as the 4 heavenly saints and several hundred rotating pills. Feeling Yi-chen's gaze, they couldn't help but greet him with a respectful fist clasp. Yi-chan simply nodded to them with a smile and refrained from engaging in further conversation. He then stowed away the ice snow jade pendant, took Xiaojiu, and directly tore through the space, shuttling towards the teleportation divine formation of the Dragon Star continent. It wasn't until Yi-chan had been gone for quite some time that the onlooking true gods could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Reflecting on what they had witnessed earlier, these true gods were still excited and incredulous. After taking a few deep breaths, they too disappeared into the void. The 4 heavenly saints who had initially intended to fight exchanged looks, smiling wryly before speaking. Fellow Taoists, let us postpone our battle to another day. After witnessing that senior's tribulation today, I no longer have the mood for competition. Indeed, witnessing the senior's tribulation has left me somewhat shaken. I need to return and reflect on this experience. After exchanging a few more words, the 4 heavenly saints transformed into escaping lights and flew off. Ultimately, the several hundred rotating pills also departed from the mountain range. As the news of their departure and the events they witnessed began to spread, many martial artists of the Dragon Star continent gradually learned that an exceptional Heavens Chosen had undergone tribulation on the Blue Gold Mountain range of Dragon Star continent. Even many lower true gods from the continent came to the site where Yi-chan had faced the heavenly tribulation to investigate. However, Yi-chan had long since departed, so they could no longer see any trace of him. Nevertheless, the remnants of the tribulation in the Blue Gold Mountain range made these lower god kings extremely solemn. As these lower god kings dispersed what they had seen and felt, martial artists across the entire Dragon Star continent became aware that their small star continent had been visited by an extraordinary individual. Many even speculated whether it was that young Heavens Chosen from the Divine Kingdom who had come to their Dragon Star continent. Meanwhile, in circulation of Heaven Divine City, at the City Lord's mansion, there are only 3 days left before the battle for Divine City. Why hasn't Yi-chan returned to circulation of Heaven Divine City yet? City Lord Nye paced anxiously around the City Lord's mansion. Chapter 665, Supreme Goddess Long Li. City Lord Nye was certainly uneasy. This time, he had entrusted a powerful friend to find Lin Xiaowan, who was cultivating at the Supreme Divine Institute, to help. He had absolutely no concerns about Lin Xiaowan. After all, she was training at the most powerful divine institute in the Divine Kingdom, the Supreme Divine Institute. Moreover, he had heard from his friend that Lin Xiaowan was rather formidable among the 9 tribulations true gods at the Supreme Divine Institute. Participating in the battle of the small divine cities was an underuse of her talents. There was no chance she would be defeated. Lin Xiaowan was sure to secure a victory slot for circulation of Heaven Divine City, and since each competition was decided by best of 3 matches, they needed another stable victory point to stand out from the battles against the other 17 small divine cities. As for the other 2 chosen to represent circulation of Heaven Divine City in the Battle of Divine Cities, the young Zhao Luo and the youth Yi-chan, City Lord Nye naturally had more faith in Yi-chen's strength. He had heard his niece Wan praise Yi-chen's capabilities. However, now with only 3 days left before the Battle of Divine Cities, City Lord Nye had received no news of Yi-chen's return to circulation of Heaven Divine City, and it was starting to worry him. If Yi-chan did not return and was unable to represent circulation of Heaven Divine City in the battle, using a replacement would make the assurance of victory uncertain, apart from Lin Xiaowan's guaranteed win. In that case, the chances of standing out in the Battle of Divine Cities would become extremely slim. That, of course, caused City Lord Nye, who was set on securing one of the 10 spots to enter the 9 Suns ancient land for circulation of Heaven Divine City among the 18 small divine cities, to become increasingly anxious. At that moment, Lin Xiaowan and Zhao Luo were both beside City Lord Nye. Zhao Luo was also worried about Yi Chen's absence. He had finally obtained the opportunity to represent circulation of Heaven Divine City in the Battle of Divine Cities. Zhao Luo knew all too well that it was unlikely for him to keep winning in the battle without relying on Yi Chen and Lin Xiaowan. Without Yi Chen, if another warrior had to substitute, then the chances of circulation of Heaven Divine City securing a spot in the Nine Suns ancient land would be incredibly bleak, and his own chance to go there would be lost. At this time, Lin Xiaowan looked at City Lord Nye with her eyes twinkling and said with a light chuckle, "Uncle Nye, if Yi Chen doesn't come back, I'm afraid I will have to withdraw as well." Withdraw? City Lord Nye was shocked. "Niswan, even if Yi Chen doesn't return, if we find another 9 tribulations true god, we still have a chance to obtain a spot in the Nine Suns ancient land. Why would you withdraw?" Lin Xiaowan spoke seriously. "Uncle Nye, previously I didn't care much about obtaining a spot in the Nine Suns ancient land, and I only hurried over to assist you because of my family ancestor. However, a major event occurred a few days ago, and now it's imperative for me to secure a spot in the Nine Suns ancient land. If Yi Chen were to join forces with me, I'm confident we could lead circulation of Heaven Divine City to victory, on one hand helping you, Uncle Nye, and on the other securing a spot in the Nine Suns ancient land. But if Yi Chen does not return, I must seek alliance with Great Divine City and obtain an entry spot into the Nine Suns ancient land directly through them. After all, I'm absolutely unwilling to miss out on the Nine Suns ancient land spot now simply to assist circulation of Heaven Divine City." Hearing Lin Xiaowan's earnest words, City Lord Nye's heart skipped a beat. A few days ago, an important change had occurred, and his niece must secure a spot to enter the Nine Suns ancient land? He had always heard Lin Xiaowan say she didn't care about the slot for the Nine Suns ancient land. So what exactly had happened to make her suddenly care about it and need to enter the Nine Suns ancient land? "Niswan, what exactly happened?" City Lord Nye quickly asked Lin Xiaowan. He was still waiting for Yi Chen to return, and now he heard Lin Xiaowan say she wanted to withdraw. Without these two assistants, the chances for his circulation of Heaven Divine City to win the Divine City battle were practically non-existent. Hearing City Lord Nye's query, Lin Xiaowan turned her beautiful eyes toward the void. "Uncle Nye, although the Nine Suns ancient land is a realm left behind by a heavenly divine venerable, the treasures that have flowed out from numerous explorations there are not many. Although it is attractive to many true gods and divine kings, it is not that significant to us at the Supreme Divine Institute and the strongest among the Divine Kingdom's 8 great divine institutes. After all, there are many places we can enter that are more precious than the Nine Suns ancient land." Lin Xiaowan's words made City Lord Nye nod repeatedly. He certainly knew of the status of the 9 divine institutes of the Divine Kingdom. It was rumored that even sovereign realm powerhouses were among them, so of course they wouldn't care about a relic site left by a heavenly divine venerable. So why did his niece care so much about the Nine Suns ancient land now? Could it be that something had changed within the Nine Suns ancient land? City Lord Nye became even more perplexed. Seeing the expression on City Lord Nye's face, as if guessing what he was thinking, Lin Xiaowan laughed and said, "Uncle Nye, it's not because of the Nine Suns ancient land itself. I don't know if anything has changed there. I must obtain a slot to enter the Nine Suns ancient land, because the Supreme Divine Institute's #1 divine girl, Long Li, is going to enter the Nine Suns ancient land." The #1 divine girl, Long Li. When he heard Lin Xiaowan mention that name, City Lord Nye was greatly shocked. Could it be the legendary divine girl Long Li, from the 9 divine institutes of the Divine Kingdom? It is rumored that despite being only 16 years old this year, she is already a high-level divine king. She's simply the first legend in the history of the Divine Kingdom, and among the Divine King realm powerhouses of the 9 divine institutes, she ranks absolutely first. It's said that she can even fight against divine venerables and has defeated many earth divine venerables, and has even encountered heavenly divine venerables. She is the absolute prodigy of the Supreme Divine Institute and even the entire Divine Kingdom of Wanmu Mountain. I heard that the old venerables of the Supreme Divine Institute have specially opened up many invaluable cultivation sites for her. How could she be interested in the Nine Suns' ancient land? The Nine Suns' ancient land may indeed be good for many divine kings, but for someone of her stature, she definitely wouldn't be interested. Read the latest on Novelbin.com. City Lord Nye was utterly astonished. Even in the small divine cities of the Southern Territory circulation of Heaven Divine City, within the divine kingdom of Wanmu Mountain, he had heard of the Supreme Divine Institute's #1 divine girl, Long Li. At this moment, Lin Xiaowan's tone also revealed an immense admiration. Sister Long Li is the foremost person among the younger generation in the entire Supreme Divine Institute. Even many divine venerables wouldn't dare to provoke her. She is also the idol of the Supreme Divine Institute and countless martial artists from the Divine Institutes. She is younger than me but has reached such an incredible level of cultivation, truly dauntingly powerful. I have seen Sister Long Li a few times, and her talent is unbelievably powerful. Precisely because the news of Sister Long Li going to the Nine Suns' ancient land has spread. Now many true gods and divine kings from the 8 divine institutes also want to follow to the Nine Suns' ancient land. There have even been quite a few who went directly to the Southern Territory King Mansion to secure a slot to enter the Nine Suns' ancient land. As far as I know, among the 10 divine kings who can enter the Nine Suns' ancient land this time, aside from Sister Long Li, the other 9 are all prodigies from the divine kingdom. Chapter 666- Yichun returns. Within the God King list jointly created by the 9 major divine institutes, aside from Sister Long Li ranking first, there are 3 others among the top 10 who, because of Sister Long Li, will be entering the Nine Suns' ancient land this time. Those 3 are not only the absolute admirers of Sister Long Li, but also talented individuals with significant backgrounds in their respective divine kingdoms. The God Kings who can enter the Nine Suns' ancient land this time are much more formidable than usual, and this time, I'm afraid that many powerful true gods and true gods with great backgrounds from the 9 divine institutes will take away many of the 10 spots allocated to the various divine cities of the Southern Territory. Even countless smaller divine cities and the battles between our 18 circulation of heaven divine cities, I am afraid, will attract many true gods who couldn't get a spot from the larger divine cities, all vying for those 10 entries to the Nine Suns' ancient land. So, not only will the candidates entering the Nine Suns' ancient land this time be countless times stronger than usual, I'm afraid that the upcoming battles for the spots in the smaller divine cities will be countless times fiercer, too. Uncle Nye, I'm among the top ranks of true gods at the Supreme Divine Institute, so it will be very easy for me to secure a spot to the Nine Suns' ancient land from one of the larger divine cities. Now do you understand why I said that if Yichun doesn't come back, I will leave? I don't want to miss the chance to enter the Nine Suns' ancient land and miss the opportunity to explore it with Sister Long Li. Moreover, even if Yichun comes back, I also want to see the extent of his strength and determine whether he can be sure to win the battle between the 18 divine cities of circulation of Heaven Divine City. If the chances are not great, I'll consider other options. After hearing Lin Xiaowan's words, City Lord Nye took a deep breath. He did not know that, just these past few days, so many things had happened because of Long Li, the first goddess of the Supreme Divine Institute. In that case, as Lin Xiaowan said, the once prized exploration of the Nine Suns' ancient land in the Southern Territory has now, because of Long Li, attracted the attention of many true gods and divine kings across the entire divine kingdom. He also understood his niece Lin Xiaowan's desire to enter the Nine Suns' ancient land. City Lord Nye took a deep sigh. I'm afraid that this time the battle for the divine city will indeed be more difficult than before. While many powerful true gods will get their spots to the Nine Suns' ancient land from the larger divine cities, plus, considering the sheer number of smaller divine cities, the number of powerful true gods that will eventually enter the battle of our 18 circulation of heaven divine cities won't be many. But, even if it's just a few, there will definitely be a few. If Yichun really hasn't come back, then relying only on you, my niece, our circulation of heaven divine city indeed won't have much confidence. After sighing, City Lord Nye looked seriously at Lin Xiaowan and said, My niece, if Yichun has not returned by today, I won't hold you back any longer. Don't waste your chance to go to the Nine Suns' ancient land for the sake of our small divine city. Hearing City Lord Nye's words, Lin Xiaowan smiled lightly. Let's wait one more day. I heard from the Zhou family that Yi Chun was out cultivating, and I want to see if this young man, who could overpower many 9 calamity true gods at the mere late stage of heavenly saint, has improved this time. If he doesn't come back tomorrow, it won't be too late for me to secure a spot in another divine city. City Lord Nye also nodded in agreement. Together with Lin Xiaowan, he waited for news about Yi Chen's return. Zhao Luo, on the other hand, couldn't get a word in edgewise with City Lord Nye and Lin Xiaowan, yet he didn't feel the slightest bit irate. At this moment, he was stunned by the news Lin Xiaowan mentioned. Countless true gods and divine kings from the 9 divine institutes are going to flood into the 9 Suns' ancient land. This will likely turn into a major event for the Southern Territory. Yi Chen, you'd better hurry back. I really want to go to the 9 Suns' ancient land to see what the first goddess Long Li of the Supreme Divine Institute looks like. If you don't come back, and Lin Xiaowan leaves too, I won't have the slightest chance of entering the 9 Suns' ancient land. Zhao Luo's desire to go to the 9 Suns' ancient land became even more urgent. As Zhao Luo was about to start pacing anxiously, while City Lord Nye and Lin Xiaowan quietly waited, a voice suddenly came from the void. I just got back to the Zhou family and heard from them that City Lord Nye, you were looking for me? Whoosh! City Lord Nye, Lin Xiaowan, and Zhao Luo immediately turned their gazes toward the void above. What they saw made their eyes widen. The figure of Yi Chen, for whom they had been anxiously waiting, was appearing out of the void and flying toward them. Your adventure continues at Novelbin. Calm. Yi Chen had returned.
Yi Chen.
City Lord Nye and Zhao Luo called out with excitement at the same time. Lin Xiaowan's beautiful eyes opened wide in shock as she sensed the aura of a true god emanating from Yi Chen. Moreover, it was the aura of a 4th tribulation true god. Yi Chen, when you left Circulation of Heaven Divine City, weren't you only at the later stages of the Heavenly Saint Realm? How is it that in barely 3 months of not seeing you, you've cultivated to the 4th tribulation true god? Lin Xiaowan exclaimed in disbelief. Even with her training at the Supreme Divine Institute, advancing from the later stages of the Heavenly Saint Realm to a 4th tribulation true god within such a short span of 3 months, and breaking through several realms in the process, was something she had almost never heard of. It was only Long Li, the first goddess of the Supreme Divine Institute, who had entered the life origin wheel for training and managed to break through from a 6th tribulation true god straight to a 9th tribulation true god. At that time, Long Li had sent ripples throughout the entire Supreme Divine Institute with her achievement. Granted, breaking through from the later stages of the Heavenly Saint Realm to a 4th Tribulation True God wasn't as difficult as advancing from a 6th Tribulation True God to a 9th Tribulation True God, but that all depended on who you compared it with. To even come close to achieving a miracle like that of Long Li, the pride of the younger generation of the Divine Kingdom's 9 great institutes, was an accomplishment that would undoubtedly shake all 9 institutes. Even if Yi Chen had utilized the life origin wheel's 100 times acceleration of time, it only offered just over 8 years of additional time. Reaching such heights in that time frame was beyond belief. Yet, such an event was happening to a youth like Yi Chen, which naturally astonished Lin Xiaowan. Lin Xiaowan immediately questioned Yi Chen. Yi Chen, did you enter the life origin wheel for cultivation? What level has your strength reached now? Yi Chen's strength was of utmost importance for the competition for a spot in the 9 Suns' ancient land. So Lin Xiaowan was naturally very concerned. Seeing Lin Xiaowan's excited expression, Yi Chen felt a bit puzzled. He wasn't yet aware of the fact that Long Li, the first goddess of the Supreme Divine Institute, was planning to head to the 9 Suns' ancient land. Yi Chen didn't hide much from Lin Xiaowan and replied with a smile. I indeed entered the life origin wheel for my cultivation. Otherwise, there's no way I could have broken through so many realms in a mere 3 months. As for my current strength, Yi Chen's eyes conveyed a confident sheen. If only warriors below the God-King realm are participating in the Divine City battle, then there will be no problem at all for me to achieve victory on my side. What if you are faced with powerful 9th Tribulation True Gods as opponents? You still won't have any problems? Lin Xiaowan asked. Yi Chen smiled and said, no problem. His current strength was such that he could suppress even lower God Kings, let alone the ninth tribulation true gods participating in the minor divine city battles. Yi Chun was also eager to see if anyone in the divine city battle could push him to use his full strength. Chapter 667 Departure. Hearing Yi Chen's confident words, Lin Xiaowan's eyes sparkled brightly. Words alone are no proof. Yi Chen, you wouldn't mind having a bout with me? Would you? Lin Xiaowan said to Yi Chun with a smile. When Lin Xiaowan challenged him, Yi Chun had a thought stirring in his heart. Lin Xiaowan always gave him a dangerous feeling. Moreover, this woman was a martial artist from the Supreme Divine Institute, which meant she must be extraordinary. After his breakthrough, Yi Chen hadn't had a real fight with a strong opponent yet, and Lin Xiaowan's challenge could be a good match. Yi Chen also wanted to try out his actual combat capabilities after his breakthrough to see if there was any difference from what he anticipated. He also wanted to see just how formidable a warrior from the Supreme Divine Institute who had overcome the 9 tribulations truly was, to better gauge his chances in the upcoming assessments of the 9 divine institutes. A duel? I had the same thought, Yi Chun said with a smile to Lin Xiaowan. I have been keen to see the extent of a martial artist's strength who has trained in the Supreme Divine Institute. Hearing that Yi Chun was going to spar with Lin Xiaowan, the young man Zhao Luo felt an unexplainable excitement in his heart. These two individuals, far stronger than himself, would be participating in the Divine City battle alongside him. Naturally, Zhao Luo wanted to know just how powerful these two companions of his were. And City Lord Nie laughed, if you two wish to spar, my City Lord's mansion happens to have a training ground that is perfect for duels. You can use that. A short time later, Yi Chun left the City Lord's mansion and flew back towards the Zhou family's territory in Fallen Moon City. Looking towards the training ground of the City Lord's mansion, one could see the distinct expressions of Zhao Luo, City Lord Nie, and Lin Xiaowan, who were still in the training ground. The duel between Yi Chun and Lin Xiaowan wasn't a real fight to the death, just a trial, and it ended quickly. Moreover, it was Lin Xiaowan who initiated the end of the bout. Stay updated through novelbin.com. Even though they only sparred for a very short time, Lin Xiaowan was still extremely thrilled. In that brief exchange, she found herself equally matched with Yi Chun. One must know Lin Xiaowan was a warrior who had been training at the 9 Divine Institutes, having entered the strongest of them all, the Supreme Divine Institute, after the last set of institute assessments. Even when she was a mere 7 tribulations true god, she could fight against many lower god kings, and as an 8 tribulations true god, she had already defeated quite a few lower god kings, marking herself as a genius capable of fighting beyond her own realm. Add to that her new breakthroughs in techniques and divine skills acquired during her training days at the Supreme Divine Institute. Lin Xiaowan at this stage was among the formidable 9 tribulations true gods within the Supreme Divine Institute, and she could even take on many middle god kings from outside. Under these circumstances, the fact that Yi Chun could fight on equal terms with her naturally shook Lin Xiaowan. Even if she didn't use her full strength, even if she didn't deploy her true trump cards, Lin Xiaowan knew that Yi Chun definitely had the capability to fight alongside her and win the battle for Divine City. Lin Xiaowan even felt that Yi Chun still had many hidden cards unplayed, and that his strength may not be much less than hers, enough to qualify for joining the Supreme Divine Institute. Lin Xiaowan was quite satisfied with Yi Chun as a companion. Zhao Luo and City Lord Nie, however, were completely astonished. Zhao Luo had not expected that although he too was a 9 tribulations true god, the gap between him and a fellow 9 tribulations true god like Lin Xiaowan would be so immense. Indeed, his training in an ordinary small divine city was simply no match for a 9 tribulations true god refined by the Supreme Divine Institute of the Divine Kingdom. Lacking the capacity to fight across realms, for him, Lin Xiaowan seemed even stronger than many lower god kings. If Lin Xiaowan was a surprise, then Yi Chun, who was only a 4 tribulations true god, was even more astonishing to Zhao Luo. Zhao Luo hadn't expected that Yi Chun, being at a lower realm than him, could match Lin Xiaowan in combat for so long without falling behind. This showed that Yi Chen's strength in cross-realm combat was incredibly formidable. As for City Lord Nie, his heart was filled with shock and a wry smile. He was a lower god king and among the more formidable in his rank. Originally, He knew his beloved niece might actually be stronger than him in a life-or-death battle. City Lord Nye could accept the strength of Lin Shaowan, who had an extraordinary background and trained at the Supreme Divine Institute. But when he saw Yi Chun fighting Lin Shaowan, he was shocked to find that this young man was so strong, seemingly no weaker than him as a lower god king, perhaps even stronger. How could this not shock City Lord Nye? Just a few months earlier, when City Lord Nye first met Yi Chun, he was merely a heavenly divine venerable late-stager, whom City Lord Nye felt he could suppress effortlessly with a mere gesture. Now, in just a matter of months, this young man seemed to have displayed signs of surpassing him. Such rapid progress, even for someone experienced as City Lord Nye, was utterly astonishing. Of course, City Lord Nye was also thrilled. His beloved niece's combat ability goes without saying. Now, with the already formidable Yi Chun having broken through to a Four Tribulations true god and his combat power reaching such levels, the two of them teaming up to help his circulation of Heaven Divine City win the battle for Divine City seemed almost a certainty. An unexpected shock, an unexpected delight, mused City Lord Nye internally. While Zhao Luo, City Lord Nye, and Lin Shaowan were all having their own reflections after the recent battle, Yi Chun, having left the City Lord's mansion, also wore a somewhat surprised expression. On one hand, Yi Chun was amazed at Lin Shaowan's strength as well. This girl could train at the Supreme Divine Institute, and she was among the formidable beings in the 9 Tribulations true gods of the Institute. She was truly not ordinary. Even though Yi Chun was now capable of defeating many lower god kings, he wasn't entirely sure he could triumph over this girl. Yi Chun had also come to realize that Lin Shaowan was a genius capable of crossing realms in battle. This made Yi Chun even more interested in joining the Supreme Divine Institute to meet more such talents. The second thing that completely surprised Yi Chun was what Lin Shaowan told him about the new developments in the Nine Suns' ancient land after their spar. When he heard that the first goddess of the Supreme Divine Institute, Long Li, intended to enter the Nine Suns' ancient land, causing many talented true gods and god kings to rush there, it stirred upheaval among the young generations of the 9 great god institutes and even the true gods and god kings outside. Yi Chun was also shocked. And when he heard Lin Shaowan speak of this first goddess Long Li of the Supreme Divine Institute, Yi Chun felt an inexplicable sense of awe. 16 years old and already an upper god king? Having defeated many earth divine venerables, and even clashed with a heavenly divine venerable, Yi Chun was absolutely astonished by the combat power of this Long Li. Yi Chun felt that his own breakthroughs in cultivation were incredibly fast, but even then, compared to this legendary foremost proud daughter of the younger generation from the divine kingdom known as Long Li, he still felt far weaker. It must be known that by bone age, Long Li was even a few years younger than him. Long Li was born in the divine kingdom. Indeed, her starting point is higher than those from the lower realm. Perhaps, she's also entered the cycle of life's origin several times. Yet, even so, to achieve such a level at 16, reaching the realm of Upper God King, it's absolutely fitting to call her the #1 pride of the divine kingdom. After all, countless martial artists in the divine kingdom can't even compare to me, let alone her. Amidst his admiration, Yi Chun grew curious about this rumored first beauty and first god king of the Supreme Divine Institute, Long Li, who had enchanted countless martial artists across the 9 great god institutes. The battle for Divine City. I must win that entry spot into the 9 Suns' ancient land. I can't miss this chance to witness Long Li for myself, as well as the talents from the younger generation of the divine kingdom. As Yi Chun pondered this, he traversed through the Blood Moon Forest and eventually returned to the Zhou family's residence in Fallen Moon City. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 3 days, because of Zhou Yu's safe return with many treasures, the Zhou family was ecstatic. Even though Zhou Yu didn't share all of the treasures with her clan members, revealing them only to the upper echelons. When they heard that the Zhou family had obtained numerous black divine coins, providing the younger generation with resources and opportunities for cultivation, the members of the Zhou family couldn't calm their excitement. And Yi Chun, who brought all this to the Zhou family, became the savior in the eyes of the Zhou clan members. The Zhou family members wished they could stay by Yi Chen's side every day to express their gratitude. Understanding the Zhou family members' joy, Yi Chen was empathetic, but he was slightly overwhelmed by their enthusiasm. In the end, it was only when Yi Chen needed to prepare for the battle for Divine City, after Zhou Tianhao and Zhou Yu informed the family, that the Zhou clan members ceased disturbing Yi Chen's cultivation. When the day of the battle for Divine City finally arrived after 3 days, Yi Chen flew out from the Zhou family's residence early in the morning, followed by Zhou Yu, Zhou Tianhao, and others who were reluctant to part with him. The young girl, Zhou Yu, had red-rimmed eyes. She knew that this farewell with Yi Chen might be the last. After participating in the battle for Divine City, it was unlikely he would return to Fallen Moon City. They might never meet again. Ascending from the Zhou residence, Yi Chen looked back in mid-air, his gaze landing on those standing next to Zhou Yu, vigorously waving goodbye. It was none other than Bing Yi, Bing Wu, and Bing Qi. Just as Yi Chen had settled the matters with the Zhou clan, descendants of the Ice-Sealed God King, and was about to leave for the battle for Divine City, Bing Yi, Bing Wu, and Bing Qi expressed their sorrowful wish to stay behind. They wanted to accompany the Zhou family members for a while longer and, in the future, they planned to cultivate on their own. Through conversations with Bing Yi, Bing Wu, and Bing Qi, Yi Chen learned the reasons behind their decision. On one hand, they wanted to repay the kindness of the Ice-Sealed God King. On the other, they felt helpless during formidable tribulations when faced with his rapid progress in cultivation. They knew they were no longer of much help to their new master, and even believed that their master's achievements would surely surpass the Ice-Sealed God King in the future. They needed to cultivate on their own. Perhaps in the future, they could be of help to Yi Chen again and meet with him. Otherwise, following Yi Chen would only result in being left further and further behind. Bing Yi, tearing up, told Yi Chen that she would strive to join the Great Divine Institute to find him again in the future. Seeing Bing Yi, Bing Wu, and Bing Qi in the crowd, waving goodbye with tears on their faces, Yi Chen's heart was heavy, but he couldn't refuse their decision. After a while, Yi Chen sighed deeply and set his sights forward. At the same time, glancing at Xiao Jiu, who was resting his head on his neck to comfort him with his actions, and the little monkey sleeping inside the ice snow jade pendant, he thought at least he still had these two little companions by his side. Partings are a precursor to reunions. Let go of the sorrowful thoughts. The battle for Divine City and the 9 Suns' ancient land await ahead. As Yi Chen's eyes gradually cleared, he reached the skies above circulation of Heaven Divine City and saw City Lord Nye, Zhao Luo, and Lin Xiaowan taking off from the Divine City. Yi Chen, you've arrived? Let's go. This battle for Divine City will take place in a place called Endless Mountain on our star continent. We'll use the teleportation divine formation to rush there now. City Lord Nye told Yi Chen with a smile. Chapter 668-. The Bet. Endless Mountain is a vast and continuous mountain range, located in the central region of Star Continent where circulation of Heaven Divine City is situated. At this moment, within a grand valley of this massive mountain range, 18 vast void stone platforms, each spanning dozens of zhang in diameter, had been erected, forming a circle. Encircled by these platforms at the center of the area was a colossal arena spanning tens of thousands of zhang in diameter. This was the battle site for the War of Divine Cities, where the 18 small divine cities assigned to circulation of Heaven Divine City would compete. When Yi Chen, City Lord Nye, Lin Xiaowan, and Zhao Luo arrived near Endless Mountain through the small transmission divine array between different divine cities within Star Continent. And after a short flight, they finally reached this huge valley. At this time, on the 18 void stone platforms, 13 were already occupied by martial artists sitting cross-legged. Each void stone platform was occupied by one lower god king with 3 warriors of the true god realm. It seemed that all the small divine cities participating in the War of Divine Cities, like Circulation of Heaven Divine City, were led by lower god kings. At this time, the martial artists on these void stone platforms were either conversing with one another, meditating in silence, or sizing up Yi Chen and his party as they flew in. Upon seeing this situation on the platforms, Yi Chen, City Lord Nye, Lin Xiaowan, and Zhao Luo flew directly onto one of the unoccupied void stone platforms. Once everyone arrives, we can start preparing for the War of Divine Cities. The overseer for our battle among the 18 small divine cities this time is an Upper God King dispatched by the Southern Territory King Mansion. It looks like that Upper God King hasn't arrived yet, City Lord Nye said to Yichan, Lin Xiaowan, and Zhao Luo. Yichan and his companions nodded, then carefully observed the other martial artists on the platforms. After scanning their gazes over the martial artists, Yichan and Lin Xiaowan exchanged a look, then withdrew their probing eyes. Having sensed the strength of their opponents for a short while, they had some understanding of these adversaries' capabilities. Of course, there might be those who were concealing their strengths, so real combat abilities could only be determined in a live battle. Nevertheless, Yichan and Lin Xiaowan, who aspired to venture to the Nine Suns' ancient land and compete with many formidable beings of the true God realm, were not overly concerned about the upcoming battle of the small divine cities. Yichan and Lin Xiaowan appeared calm and composed. However, Zhao Luo's palms were now sweating lightly. Although he felt confident about circulation of Heaven Divine City's victory through the support of Yichan and Lin Xiaowan, he knew he must also fight in the best-of-3 matches, and naturally did not wish to lose all of his battles. Yet, after sensing the auras of the warriors on the void stone platforms, Zhao Luo's heart began to pound with apprehension. Although he was considered strong within circulation of Heaven Divine City and was roughly on par with many of the warriors on the platforms, there were still a dozen or so whose presence made him feel a threat. Just as Yichan and Lin Xiaowan withdrew their gazes, and Zhao Luo was still worrying about the upcoming battle, a loud burst of laughter suddenly approached the platform where they were. "Ha ha! Nye, my brother, you've arrived even faster than me this time." Boom! 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 For figures descended from the void, flying directly towards the stone platform occupied by circulation of Heaven Divine City, and landed on the spacious void stone platform adjacent to it. The leader was a skinny, yellow-robed, middle-aged man, the one who had spoken. His small eyes were bright and full of life, shining with astuteness. As a lower god king, it was clear he was also the lord of one of the 18 small divine cities. "Humph, God King Wuzan, it's been a while, and you still have that same devious look. It seems you've been doing quite well for yourself in Mingji Divine City," City Lord Nye said, not mincing his words as he responded to the yellow-robed, middle-aged man. As City Lord Nye spoke to the yellow-robed man, he whispered to Yichan, Lin Xiaowan, and Zhao Luo, "This God King Wuzan and I both came from the 4th Battalion under the Southern Territory King Mansion. The Mingji Divine City he was assigned to is the largest among our group of 18 small divine cities this time. Our main competitors would very likely be this Mingji Divine City." While City Lord Nye was speaking, Lin Xiaowan and Yichan turned their attention to the 3 warriors behind God King Wuzan. All 3 were at the 9 tribulations of the true God realm. Upon seeing these 3, Lin Xiaowan's gaze immediately narrowed. She communicated to Yichan, "Even though these 3 are concealing their aura deeply, they give off the impression of the Tai Lin Divine Institute's techniques from among the 9 great divine institutes. I didn't expect that Mingji Divine City could recruit such true gods. In my sensing, their strength is not much weaker than mine, and they would have easily secured a place to enter the Nine Suns' ancient land from the great divine cities. Yet they are participating in the War of Divine Cities among the small divine cities." Lin Xiaowan was somewhat surprised. Yichan was also assessing the 3 true gods, and his eyes narrowed upon hearing Lin Xiaowan's words. It seemed that just as circulation of Heaven Divine City's City Lord Nye was able to invite Lin Xiaowan, the other divine cities were similarly able to enlist some aid. As Yichan and the others assessed the 3 true gods, the trio of true gods representing Mingji Divine City in the God City War, who were behind God King Wuzan, were likewise assessing Yichan's group. All 3 were tall and slender young men, but their gazes initially settled on Lin Xiaowan, completely overlooking Yichan and Zhao Luo standing beside her. When they saw Lin Xiaowan, their eyes also showed some shock. Apparently, they too could sense the extraordinary background of Lin Xiaowan. After exchanging glances, their gazes swept over Yichan and Zhao Luo, Upon noticing that Yi Chun was only at the 4 tribulations true God level, they revealed a look of surprise. It was known that almost all participants in the God City War were at the 9 tribulations true God level, with only a few at the 8 tribulations level. Thus, it was quite unexpected to see a 4 tribulations true God here. When they sensed Yi Chen's aura more carefully but didn't detect anything special, the trio retracted their gazes. This woman in white actually carries the aura of the Supreme Divine Institute's techniques. The Supreme Divine Institute is even stronger than our Tai Lin Divine Institute. Who would have thought we'd encounter a disciple of the Supreme Divine Institute at the God City War in the small divine cities? The 3 communicated through voice transmission. Our chances of defeating her seem slim. However, the God City War of the small divine cities has a best of 3 format. One must win 2 out of 3 matches. Even if we can't defeat this woman in white, taking down the other 2 shouldn't be a problem. That 4 tribulations true God youth, being able to represent circulation of Heaven Divine City in the God City War, must have some uniqueness to him. Nevertheless, his chances of victory against us are slim. While they conversed through voice transmission, one of the brown-clothed young men also transmitted his voice to the others. Having both my masters assist me this time, I am truly grateful. I have some connections with God King Wutsan, and this time I must help him secure the 10 spots for entering the 9 Suns' ancient land. No need for such politeness, big brother. The other 2 replied via voice transmission. Helping you is one thing, but we also covet those spots for the 9 Suns' ancient land. Rumor has it that the first goddess Long Li of the Supreme Divine Institute will be heading there. How could we miss the chance to meet Long Li? Securing spots from the great divine cities requires a significant price, whereas winning spots from the God City War of the small divine cities tends to be an easier task. Continue reading on novelbin.com. Upon mentioning the name Long Li, the trio's gazes turned fiery. Long Li had a renowned reputation throughout the entire Wamu Mountain Divine Nation, and among the 9 divine institutes, she was the object of countless young martial artists' secret affection. Although they never had the chance to even speak with Long Li, their desire to see her was not one bit less. The true gods from both Circulation of Heaven Divine City and Mingji Divine City assessed each other while engaging in voice transmission. City Lord Nye and God King Wutsan were also looking towards those who were participating in the God City War. When God King Wutsan saw Lin Shaowan, a flash of brilliance passed through his eyes. But when he saw that Yi Chun was merely a 4 tribulations true god, he was quite surprised. Haha, Nye, you actually brought a 4 tribulations true god to partake in the God City War. Is Circulation of Heaven Divine City running out of contenders? Or does this young man have some unique attribute? God King Wutsan said to City Lord Nye with a chuckle. City Lord Nye, of course, would not reveal his secrets to a sly old man like God King Wutsan, so he replied indifferently, My chosen candidate certainly has a unique aspect. Haha. It seems you're quite confident about your selections. Nye. God King Wutsan said with a cryptic smile as if he had thought of something. By the way, Nye, I recently came across a fine item. I wonder if you might be interested. What item? City Lord Nye, observing the expression of God King Wutsan, braced himself internally. Back when he and God King Wutsan were training in the Southern Territory King Mansion's 4th camp, every time God King Wutsan mentioned a good find, it meant he was plotting to obtain treasures from City Lord Nye through trade. Although City Lord Nye too had traded for some fine items from God King Wutsan, God King Wutsan likewise managed to obtain precious treasures from him. In fact, by using one of his treasures, God King Wutsan combined it with several others to forge a powerful heaven-reaching divine artifact, eventually securing the position of Lord over Mingji Divine City, which was much more formidable than Circulation of Heaven Divine City, leaving City Lord Nye somewhat regretful. Now, seeing the secretive look on God King Wutsan's face, City Lord Nye couldn't help being on his guard. Yet the following words from God King Wutsan instantly caused City Lord Nye's complexion to change as he heard. Not long ago, I discovered 3 purple sunflowers. I've heard, Nye, that you're searching for purple sunflowers to refine a divine pill to break through to the middle God King level. I wonder if you're interested in these purple sunflowers. As he spoke, God King Wutsan flipped his palm, and a fist-sized flower emitting sparks of purple flame directly appeared in his hand. Hearing God King Wutsan's words and seeing the purple flower in his hand, even City Lord Nie's breathing tightened. He indeed needed those purple sunflowers. Nevertheless, City Lord Nie knew that God King Wutsan wouldn't just bring out purple sunflowers for nothing. Taking a deep breath, City Lord Nie addressed God King Wutsan. "Out with it, old fellow. What treasure of mine have you set your eyes on this time?" God King Wutsan flashed a cunning smile. "I heard, Nie, that you happen to possess a heavenly bell herb." Before God King Wutsan could finish, City Lord Nie erupted in anger. "Old man, you're actually coveting my heavenly bell herb? My heavenly bell herb is much more precious than purple sunflowers. Don't think I will exchange it with you." As if expecting this reaction from City Lord Nie, God King Wutsan smiled blandly. "Who said I wanted to trade treasures with you? Seeing as you're so confident about your candidates for the God City War, and I'm equally confident about mine, how about we make a wager? If my selections outperform yours in the God City War, then I win, and you will have to give me your heavenly bell herb. Naturally, should my side lose, I will also give you the purple sunflowers, and even throw in a few auxiliary herbs needed to refine the purple sun elixir. How about that?" Chapter 669 The battle begins. God King Wutsan's proposal brought a surge of joy to City Lord Nie's heart. This old fellow, so he's had this in mind. A bet? Whoever wins just takes the other's treasure directly. That's clever. With a trade he would have to give up a purple sunflower to exchange for my heavenly bell herb. But with the bet, if he wins, he gets the heavenly bell herb without having to pay anything. He must have figured out that I invited Niswan, a strong fighter, and he's likely to bet with me. He thinks his remaining 2 martial artists can beat the 2 on my side. But he has absolutely no idea that, besides Niswan, I have another trump card, that is Yi Chun. City Lord Nie had seen the match between Yi Chun and Lin Shaowan, and even he, a lower-ranked God King, was not sure if he could defeat Yi Chun. Of course, City Lord Nie knew that even if God King Wutsan brought a powerful true god as his aide, it was almost impossible for him to win against Yi Chun. Discover more content at novelbin.com. Bet. Indeed, we can bet. This old fellow wants to win my heavenly bell herb for nothing. I'll make him lose his wife and his troops, and directly lose the purple sunflower to me. In an instant, City Lord Nie had made up his mind. However, City Lord Nie kept a poker face, deliberately turning his gaze to the 3 true gods behind God King Wutsan, as if he were struggling with a difficult decision. Seeing that City Lord Nie did not outright refuse, God King Wutsan was delighted, and he said to City Lord Nie with a smile, "Nie, my dear brother, a bet has risks for everyone. I'm also taking a big risk here. If I lose, my 3 purple sunflowers will be given to you for nothing. You do realize these purple sunflowers are not easy to find." God King Wutsan was still urging City Lord Nie. City Lord Nie found it amusing internally, but he did not relent. "Old fellow, by the looks of it, you're quite confident in winning against me. I can't fall into your trap. Those 3 Nine Tribulations true gods you're putting forth for battle. Did you invite some powerful helpers from someplace?" In fact, Lin Shaowan had already informed City Lord Nie through a secret voice transmission about the strength and origins of the 3 Nine Tribulations true gods behind God King Wutsan. And City Lord Nie was equally clear about it. Hearing City Lord Nie's somewhat reluctant tone, God King Wutsan's eyes shifted, and he laughed. "Nie, my dear brother, these 3 Nine Tribulations true god friends of mine are indeed strong. But brother, have you not invited a helper from the Supreme Divine Institute yourself? With another 9 Tribulations true god on your side, and this young man who can fight as a 4 Tribulations true god, I may not necessarily be stronger than you. If you're unwilling, I can take the purple sunflower and exchange it with other city lords." "Hold on. Let me think about it some more." City Lord Nie pretended to be somewhat reluctant to part with the purple sunflower and insecure about winning the bet, furrowing his brows and pondering for several moments before finally saying to God King Wutsan, "Old fellow, I'm willing to accept your bet, but even if I lose, you don't have to give me all 3 purple sunflowers. You must still provide me with one purple sunflower as a base guarantee. Otherwise, I'm risking giving you the wind chime grass, which I am not willing to do. This is my final condition. If you agree, I'll bet with you. If you don't, then forget it. City Lord Nye appeared to have finally made up his mind. After considering, God King Wutsan's eyes twirled, and then he burst into laughter, agreeing, "All right, Nye, my dear brother, your wind chime grass is indeed a bit more precious than my purple sunflower, so I'll agree to your condition. If I win, you'll give me the wind chime grass, and I'll additionally give you a purple sunflower. If I lose, I'll directly give you all 3 purple sunflowers. How about that, brother? I truly want to have this bet with you." Observing God King Wutsan's serious demeanor, City Lord Nye knew this old fox must be rejoicing inside. "Hee, old fellow, you've fooled me a few times. This time, I'll make you bleed." City Lord Nye was internally laughing without stop. The 2 God Kings, each with their own schemes, finally struck hands and agreed upon the bet. Yichun and Lin Shaowan watched the verbal sparring between God King Wutsan and City Lord Nye, exchanged glances, and started whispering and laughing to each other. They both, of course, had seen through the intentions of both God Kings. However, Yichun and Lin Shaowan were indifferent to the bet itself. What concerned them were the places to enter the 9 Suns' ancient land. As for the extra treasures that City Lord Nye could win, they were pleased to see it happen. After City Lord Nye and God King Wutsan settled the bet, they exchanged a few words and then each sat cross-legged on their respective empty stone platforms, waiting for the battle for the divine city to begin. Before long, the city lords of the remaining smaller divine cities who had not yet arrived also hurried into the valley with their 3 chosen combatants. All 18 representatives of the small divine cities set to partake in the battle for the divine city finally arrived. And when the appointed time for the divine city battle officially arrived, a wave of motion occurred in the void, and a man in green-clad clothes with a sword on his back directly appeared in the middle of the void. When they saw the green-clothed middle-aged man, the city lords from the 18 void stone platforms all stood up with their respective true gods who were slated for battle. City Lord Nye also turned to Lin Shaowan, Yichun, and Zhao Luo and said, "This sword-carrying, green-clothed middle-aged man is the upper god king appointed by the Southern Territory King Mansion to oversee the divine city battle between our 18 smaller divine cities. He is a famous powerhouse from another star continent not far from our own, known as Lanling God King." As City Lord Nye introduced the identity of the sword-carrying, green-clothed middle-aged man, many city lords also directly greeted the man in the void with a fist salute, saying aloud, "Lord Lanling, long time no see." The Lanling God King didn't say much. He smiled and nodded toward the 18 divine city lords below. Then his gaze moved across the 54 true gods representing the 18 smaller divine cities, scrutinizing each one. When the Lanling God King saw Lin Shaowan, the 39 Tribulations true gods from the Tailin Divine Institute behind God King Wutsan, as well as several hidden yet powerful martial artists within the crowd, he smiled slightly, thinking to himself, unexpectedly, this divine city battle of the 18 smaller divine cities has attracted some skilled fighters. Seeing the arena full of 8 Tribulations and 9 Tribulations true gods, yet including Yichun, a 4 Tribulations true god, the Lanling God King showed a slightly puzzled expression. Is there really a 4 Tribulations true god participating in the divine city battle? It seems this 4 Tribulations true god must also have something special, probably another genius capable of crossing levels in combat. Immediately afterward, his gaze shifted away from Yichun and looked toward the others. He wasn't concerned about what specific techniques Yichun possessed. As an upper god king, he had seen many with lower realms but strong combat capabilities. Only through real battle could one's true strength be revealed. He suspected that Yichun must also be a minor genius with combat power around the level of a 9 Tribulations true god. After observing everyone in the field, Lanling God King no longer hesitated. He addressed everyone. "I am here by the decree of the Southern Territory King Mansion to preside over your 18 smaller divine cities' divine city battle. The ultimate victor among your 18 smaller divine cities will earn 10 spots to go to the 9 Suns' ancient land. As for how the ultimate victor will be decided, It will be the same as previous Divine City battles. Each of the 18 Divine Cities will face off against each other once, for a total of 17 rounds of combat. The Divine City with the most victories will be the ultimate winner. If there is a tie in the number of victories at the end, and it involves 2 Divine Cities, then the outcome of the battle between these 2 cities will determine who is stronger. If multiple cities have the same number of victories, the battles will continue until the final victor is decided. However, based on past experience, the likelihood of a tie is basically non-existent. It's very likely that the final victor among your 18 Divine Cities will be decided very quickly. Alright, now all City Lords, come draw the lots for your first round opponents. As soon as Lanling God King finished speaking, City Lord Nye, God King Wutsan, and the other City Lords of the 18 smaller Divine Cities flew up to Lanling God King's side to draw their opponents. When City Lord Nye flew back, he directly said to Yichan, Lin Xiaowan, and Zhao Luo, our first round opponent is Wind Dark God City. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. After each opponent was determined, the 9 pairs of opponents from the 18 smaller Divine Cities, the first pair to fight, went straight into the huge battle arena surrounded by the 18 void stone platforms. The circulation of Heaven Divine City that Yichan represented was set as the 5th pair to fight, which gave them a chance to observe the battles from above. The first pair to fight, coincidentally, included the Mingji Divine City governed by God King Wutsan. Consequently, the 3 Tribulations True Gods from the Tailin Divine Institute representing Mingji Divine City achieved a clean and swift victory in 2 bouts, winning 2 out of 3 rounds, and secured the first win. Seeing his true gods return victorious, God King Wutsan, watching the battle from the void, was all smiles. Having already made a bet with City Lord Nye and sworn an oath, at this moment he was not worried about others knowing the strength of his side, in case City Lord Nye might go back on his word. When God King Wutsan looked over at City Lord Nye while smiling, he noticed that City Lord Nye's expression was utterly unchanged, as if he didn't care in the slightest about Mingji Divine City's victory. Keep pretending, Nye, but wait until Mingji Divine City sweeps all 17 victories. Then you'll recognize our strength, God King Wutsan thought to himself. City Lord Nye could guess what God King Wutsan was thinking, but at the moment, he wasn't concerned with God King Wutsan's thoughts anymore. He was simply waiting for the circulation of Heaven Divine City's battle to begin. After 4 battles concluded, determining 4 victorious Divine Cities, the match between circulation of Heaven Divine City and Wind Dark God City finally began. Yichan, Lin Xiaowan, and Zhao Luo flew directly into the battle arena below, while the 3 true gods from Wind Dark God City also entered the battlefield. The battle started quickly and ended just as swiftly. Even without Yichan lifting a finger, Lin Xiaowan and Zhao Luo won the first 2 bouts, directly securing victory in this round of the contest. Chapter 670 – The Unstoppable Winning Streak. Not bad at all. No wonder Nye dared to bet with me. Both individuals who participated are pretty good, especially the girl from the Supreme Divine Institute. She is indeed formidable, winning without exerting much strength. Seeing Yichan, Lin Xiaowan, and Zhao Luo fly back from the battle arena, God King Wutsan on the other side could still maintain his composure, smiling faintly in his heart. City Lord Nye also greeted Yichan and the others with a beaming smile. Following the end of the first round of competition in circulation of Heaven Divine City, the first round battles between the other Divine Cities continued. Soon, the fights between the 9 pairs of opponents in the first round all ended, and the results of the first round came out. Whoosh! Lanling God King, who was presiding over the battle of the Divine Cities, waved his hand, and a huge screen appeared in the void. Continue reading at Novelbin. Calm. In the giant screen were the names of 18 Divine Cities, and alongside them the first round scores appeared. Circulation of Heaven Divine City, Mingji Divine City, and 7 other Divine Cities successfully obtained their first victory. Following that, the second, third, and fourth rounds of competition were held consecutively. In these rounds of matches, circulation of Heaven Divine City and Mingji Divine City did not encounter each other. However, as the battles progressed, And even as Mingji Divine City continued to win, God King Wutsan began to feel increasingly uneasy, because Circulation of Heaven Divine City was also continuously winning. What made God King Wutsan even more uneasy was that with each move by Yi Chun, who cleanly defeated opponents from other divine cities who were Nine Tribulations' true gods, God King Wutsan suddenly found that he couldn't see through this Four Tribulations' true god youth anymore. On the side of Circulation of Heaven Divine City, I originally thought the weakest was this Four Tribulations' true god youth named Yi Chun. Unexpectedly, the weakest turned out to be that Zhao Luo. That Zhao Luo is not worth mentioning. The three true gods on my side can take him down without any problem. But this Yi Chun, I can't quite see through him. It seems like he has never used his full strength, and his battles against Nine Tribulations' true gods seemed quite relaxed. I fear only a formidable Nine Tribulations' true god can test his true combat power. God King Wutsan was confident about winning against Zhao Luo. Regarding Lin Xiaowan, God King Wutsan had no confidence at all. Now, with Yi Chun adding an uncertain factor to the mix, God King Wutsan, who was once confident he could win the bet, began to worry a bit. However, this worry wasn't strong, since he still had utmost faith in the three individuals from the Tai Lin Divine Institute who represented Mingji Divine City. As the battle progressed to the 10th round, Circulation of Heaven Divine City finally faced a formidable Divine City. In the end, they still won the battle relying on Yi Chun and Lin Xiaowan, which made God King Wutsan somewhat panicked, because during that 10th round battle, he found that the sensation Four Tribulations' true god Yi Chun gave him was that he still hadn't given his all. You should know that the Nine Tribulations' true god that Yi Chun fought against this time, even in this star continent, belonged to a somewhat renowned Nine Tribulations' true god, not just an ordinary one. In such circumstances, Yi Chun, a Four Tribulations' true god, won, and it seemed that he hadn't exerted full effort, naturally making God King Wutsan feel uneasy. He felt that even his three Nine Tribulations' true gods from the Tai Lin Divine Institute might not be as at ease as Yi Chun had been in that situation. God King Wutsan's heart was in turmoil, but City Lord Nye was thrilled beyond measure at this time. Nis Wan is formidable, and so is Yi Chun. They both seem invincible, although Zhao Luo has been defeated several times. With Nis Wan and Yi Chun consistently bringing 2 victories, we have already achieved 10 consecutive wins. Just after 10 rounds, there are not many divine cities left that can compete with us. We're getting closer. The final victory is within reach. At this moment, high in the void, Lanling God King, who was hosting this battle of the divine cities, was also somewhat surprised at Yi Chun. He found that, although he had anticipated this young man could fight across realms, it looked as though he had still underestimated him. The youth was handling many formidable Nine Tribulations' true gods with ease. The other divine cities also took notice of the continuously victorious Circulation of Heaven Divine City, paying particular attention to their 3 combatants, especially Yi Chun and Lin Xiaowan. The battle continued. Whenever it was Circulation of Heaven Divine City's turn to fight, those divine city lords who had not yet faced them sat upright and intently watched Yi Chun and Lin Xiaowan's battle. And the following battles kept surprising them. Circulation of Heaven Divine City kept winning. They didn't lose a single round. Even if Zhao Luo lost one of the 3 matches, the other 2 would definitely win, ultimately securing that round's victory. All divine city lords understood that the greatest reliance of Circulation of Heaven Divine City was the undefeated Lin Xiaowan and Yi Chun, who won every time they stepped forward. When the battle reached the end of the 16th round, God King Wutsan's face had turned somewhat pale, because at this moment, within the light screen of the void, there were only 2 divine cities at the very top. Both of these divine cities had achieved 16 consecutive victories, and the remaining divine cities, having lost at least 2 matches each, lost to these 2 ever-victorious divine cities and had completely lost the chance to compete for the slots in the Nine Suns ancient land. And these 2 divine cities were none other than Mingji Divine City and Circulation of Heaven Divine City, which had yet to battle each other. God King Wutsan was confident about Mingji Divine City's continued victories. However, as the battles progressed, Yi Chun and Lin Xiaowan from Circulation of Heaven Divine City displayed increasingly extraordinary prowess, making God King Wuzan grow more and more worried. He finally understood why City Lord Nye had dared to bet with him. It wasn't that his brother Nye was coveting the purple sunflower, but that his brother Nye was very certain he could win the final bet. Thinking of how he could not only gain nothing if he lost the bet, but would also have to give 3 stalks of purple sunflower to City Lord Nye for nothing, had God King Wuzan feeling somewhat anxious. Still, he comforted himself. Circulation of Heaven Divine City has been winning because they have not faced us yet. If they had encountered us earlier, they would surely have lost a match. It's not too late. Although both cities have 16 consecutive victories, as long as we win this final round, Mingji Divine City will still have the last laugh and be the ultimate victor. Then, Circulation of Heaven Divine City will still have lost to us. And win Chime Grass, I can win it as well. God King Wuzan turned to the 3 true gods beside him. Qin Feng, Wang Lian, Wang Shan. The last round of battle is in your hands now. To secure our slot in the 9 Suns Ancient Land, defeat Circulation of Heaven Divine City. Qin Feng, Wang Lian, and Wang Shan were the names of the 3 9 Tribulation true gods representing Mingji Divine City, hailing from the Tai Lin Divine Institute. At this time, the trio's expressions were solemn. They had indeed realized Lin Shaowan's formidable strength beforehand. But they had not expected that within Circulation of Heaven Divine City, there would be another formidable youth. Yi Chun, who was merely a 4 Tribulations true god, had so far prevented them from gauging his real depth. Thinking of how losing the fight could mean losing their slot to the 9 Suns Ancient Land, and how obtaining a slot from other major divine cities might not be feasible in time, the 3 of them began to look uncomfortable. They certainly didn't want to miss the opportunity to travel to the 9 Suns Ancient Land. They equally did not want to miss the chance to see the first goddess of the Supreme Divine Institute, Long Li, in person. We must win this final round. As for Lin Shaowan, the 3 of us might not be able to defeat her. Wang Shan, since you are the weakest among us, you will fight against Lin Shaowan. Losing this match doesn't matter. For the remaining 2 matches, Wang Lian, you will fight against Zhao Luo, and you will surely win. As for Yi Chun, leave him to me. Qin Feng, the strongest among the 3, spoke up. Wang Shan and Wang Lian nodded in agreement. They knew that Qin Feng had defeated many lower-tier god kings and was indeed the strongest among them. Having the strongest Qin Feng to confront the enigmatic Yi Chun was indeed the best choice. As long as Qin Feng could defeat Yi Chun, they were certain to win. On the matter of Lin Shaowan, they were uncertain of victory, so they had to ensure absolute victory in the other 2 matches. However, for the battle to occur, both sides have to agree to the lineup, otherwise, it would have to be decided by drawing lots. I wonder if Circulation of Heaven Divine City would agree to our arrangement. Wang Shan said with some concern. What they didn't expect was that after reporting their lineup to the Lanling God King, upon his inquiry with Circulation of Heaven Divine City, they readily agreed. Could it be that Yi Chun is not even afraid of me? Qin Feng suddenly had a bad premonition. Otherwise, they would have at least gone for a draw to determine the opponents, possibly facing a weaker opponent and allowing me to face Lin Shaowan. No matter, I have defeated many lower-tier god kings. How could he, a 4 Tribulation true god, possibly defeat me? After confirming the order of battle, Qin Feng's expression hardened as he flew with Wang Lian and Wang Shan towards the arena. On the other side, Yi Chun, Lin Shaowan, Zhao Luo, the trio also entered the battlefield. For the final round, only one of these 2 divine cities could secure the 10 slots for the 9 Suns Ancient Land. Therefore, the other divine cities didn't even proceed with the last round of battle. All the divine city lords, along with the true gods who had no chance of winning a slot in the 9 Suns Ancient Land, all turned their gaze towards the 2 parties in this final round of battle. And for the lords of these 2 divine cities, God King Wuzan and City Lord Nye, their breathing became even more constricted. God King Wuzan's palms were even sweating. Chapter 671 – The Final Battle. The first match was between Zhao Luo of Circulation of Heaven Divine City and Wang Lian from Mingji Divine City. Zhao Luo was just an ordinary Nine Tribulations true god from Circulation of Heaven Divine City, who had lost many times in previous battles with other divine cities. Wang Lian, on the other hand, was a disciple from Tailin Divine Institute, one of the 9 great divine institutes, and his strength was formidable among the 9 Tribulations true gods. The clash between the two was devoid of any suspense. Stay connected through Novelbin. Calm. No matter how hard Zhao Luo tried, it took only 5 moves for Wang Lian to eliminate him from the competition. In the best of 3 rounds, Mingji Divine City directly won the first round. Brother Yichun, Taoist Lin Shaowan, I am still too weak. We have to rely on you, Zhao Luo said, somewhat dejected, after his loss. The 17 rounds of Divine City battles had dealt a significant blow to him. If it weren't for Yichun and Lin Shaowan, he wouldn't have been able to fight until this last moment. Yichun patted Zhao Luo on the shoulder and reassured him with a smile. Lin Shaowan also said with a light laugh, "The way Mingji Divine City has deployed its troops, they are probably banking on the final battle with Yichun. If we intend to win, we can't afford to lose the next 2 rounds. I'll go even the score first." As she spoke, Lin Shaowan flew directly into the central area of the battlefield. Wang Shan, the weakest among Mingji Divine City's 3 Nine Tribulation true gods, was arranged to specifically exhaust the strongest Lin Shaowan, and at this moment he, too, flew into the arena. The result was even quicker than the first battle, with Lin Shaowan ending the fight in just 3 moves. Circulation of Heaven Divine City successfully evened the score, and with a best of 3 round system, both divine cities now had 1 win and 1 loss each. This situation was predictable by City Lord Nye of Circulation of Heaven Divine City and God King Wuzan of Mingji Divine City once the combatants were decided. Both knew that the final match, where the Dark Horse Yichun from Circulation of Heaven Divine City fought against Qin Feng, the strongest 9 Tribulation true god of Mingji Divine City, would be crucial. The side that won would secure the final victory in the Battle of the Divine Cities. When the situation truly reached this moment, even with prior anticipation, City Lord Nye and God King Wuzan couldn't help but become anxious. "Go Yichun," Lin Shaowan said, looking at Yichun with full confidence. Zhao Luo, standing beside her, also cheered Yichun on with a pumped fist. With a faint smile, Yichun flew into the middle of the battlefield. On the other side, Qin Feng entered the battlefield almost at the same time. "Yichun, it's quite impressive that you've made it this far as a 4 Tribulations true god," said Qin Feng, his eyes brimming with intense light as he looked at Yichun. "But your victory ends here. I, Qin Feng, will defeat you completely. You'll realize that even if you can fight across realms, you are still far from matching a truly powerful 9 Tribulations true god." Hearing Qin Feng's words, Yichun, holding the purple lightning divine sword, pointed at Qin Feng and said, "Many 9 Tribulations true gods have said the same to me. However, they either lost or died. I wonder which category you fall into." Yichun stood unyielding, directly challenging Qin Feng. Whoosh! Seeing this situation unfold, the lords and true gods on the outer void stone platform were all stirred up inside. They had learned that Qin Feng was a disciple from the Tailin Divine Institute, one of the 9 great divine institutes, and they had never before seen a 4 Tribulations true god dare to speak to a 9 Tribulations true god disciple of a great divine institute in such a manner. The lords and true gods knew the real spectacle was about to begin. This battle was not only about who was stronger between Yichun and Qin Feng, but also about which divine city, Circulation of Heaven or Mingji, would have the last laugh and secure the 10 spots to go to the 9 Suns' ancient land. "I bet Qin Feng wins." This time, Mingji Divine City has deliberately used their weakest 9 Tribulations true god to deal with Lin Shaowan and kept their strongest, Qin Feng, for Yichun, just to ensure victory in this final round. If Qin Feng can arrange it like this, he must be exceedingly confident about winning the last round. A 9 Tribulations true god who trains at one of the 9 great divine institutes inherently possesses exceptional combat strength, even capable of battling lower god kings. Although Yichun is formidable, he is, after all, just a 4 Tribulations true god, and the gap in divine power between them is too great. I'm not optimistic about his chances. Despite being greatly surprised by Yi Chen's previous battles, most spectators still believed that Qin Feng would win when Yi Chen was actually up against Mingji Divine City's strongest, Qin Feng. Brother Qin Feng, defeat this Yi Chen, crush him completely. God King Wuzan had risen from his meditative pose, his gaze not leaving the battlefield below for a moment. On the side of circulation of Heaven Divine City, City Lord Nye could no longer maintain a calm expression. It's up to you, Yi Chen. On the outskirts of the battlefield, the other two Nine Tribulations True Gods from Tailin Divine Institute and Zhao Luo from Circulation of Heaven Divine City were already extremely nervous, with only Lin Xiaowan remaining composed. As everyone watched with varying expressions, Yi Chen and Qin Feng were locked in a fierce confrontation at the center of the arena. The next moment, the great battle was on the verge of erupting. Boom! 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 Qin Feng was the first to make a move. His vast divine power surged to the sky, and in an instant he soared into the void. Around him, gigantic fireballs with a diameter of 10 meters appeared, numbering in the hundreds. Each fireball contained earth-shattering energy that burned and cracked the void. If this combat arena hadn't been specifically designed for battle, just the release of these massive fireballs might have shattered the very heavens and earth. Even from a distance, some of the weaker Nine Tribulation True Gods struggled to endure the terrifying heat emanating from the hundreds of fireballs. Had it not been for their city lords who promptly created light shields to protect them, just the heat alone would have forced these true gods to flee far away. What terrifying power! These fireballs must contain some unfathomable divine arts. Even with the assistance of their city lords, these Nine Tribulation True Gods still looked pale and horrified as they watched Qin Feng, surrounded by hundreds of fireballs. They finally realized the strength of this Nine Tribulation True God from the Tailin Divine Institute. Clearly, Qin Feng had not used his full strength in the previous battle. Just this one move he was unleashing now vastly exceeded his previous level of combat power. Any one of these fireballs could probably annihilate a large mountain. Can Yi Chen withstand such terrifying fireballs? Many turned their gaze towards Yi Chen. Surprisingly, what shocked them was that Yi Chen, who was closest to the hundreds of fireballs and bore the brunt of the scorching heat, did not move an inch. It was as if the fireballs had no effect on him whatsoever. Heavens! How is Yi Chen doing this? None of these Nine Tribulation True Gods could discern Yi Chen's protective measures, but they were equally astonished to see him withstand such intense heat. Only the city lords and the truly powerful Nine Tribulation True Gods in the arena could see what was happening. It's a divine body. This seems to be the power only an undying divine body would possess. A few city lords even exclaimed out loud. They were perceptive enough to notice that although Yi Chen hadn't moved at all, there were faint black divine runes imprinting themselves around his body. These divine runes eerily resembled the marks of the legendary divine body, the undying divine body, spoken of in the divine kingdom. The undying divine body. Even the city lords, who were lower god kings, had never cultivated it. Undying divine body? Surrounded by hundreds of fireballs in the void, Qin Feng's eyes narrowed. It seems you are so formidable because you have some powerful techniques, but looking at your undying divine body, you haven't cultivated it deeply. Dream on if you think it can block my fiery flame god skills. Qin Feng certainly knew that mere fireballs could not defeat Yi Chen. With a flick of his finger towards Yi Chen in the void, the surrounding hundreds of massive fireballs plummeted towards Yi Chen like a torrential downpour. Boom! 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 These 10-meter diameter fireballs left cracks and fissures in the void wherever they passed. The sight of hundreds of them striking at Yi Chen was truly astounding. In this situation, Yi Chen couldn't just passively take the hits. It was finally his turn to act. Swish! Yi Chen abruptly drew out the purple lightning divine sword. His vast stellar power infused into the sword, and it immediately burst forth with piercing purple rays. Bang! 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 Each purple ray accurately penetrated a giant fireball. As the purple rays pierced through them, the hundreds of fireballs in the void exploded simultaneously, blossoming like endless flowers of flame in the sky above the combat arena. Yi Chen's move turned out to be the Purple Light, one of the three major forbidden sword moves of the Purple Lightning Divine Sword. With the nascent level star god power of the primordial chapter energizing it, the Purple Light move's lethality skyrocketed, instantly shattering Qin Feng's fiery flame god skills and their massive fireballs. Witnessing Yi Chen's move, Qin Feng's expression turned solemn. He pointed his finger into the air, and the exploded remnants of the fireballs transformed into a vast, flaming red waterfall that streamed back towards his fingertips. Eventually, they consolidated into a palm-sized bundle of fiery red divine flames. With another flick of his finger, more bundles of fiery red divine flames flew out from his body. There were even thousands of these fiery red bundles now. If a single bundle of divine flames could form a terrifyingly powerful fireball previously, imagine the power when thousands of these bundles were released simultaneously. The strength of the flames soared to inconceivable heights. Even the protective light shields summoned by many of the divine city lords were unable to withstand the fire's power, shattering instantly. This scene caused many city lords to change their expressions dramatically and, along with the true gods beside them, they quickly retreated. They couldn't comprehend how Qin Feng's second move, after a mere test of strength, could escalate his combat power to such a frightening degree. Chapter 672, Outburst versus Outburst. Ultimately, it was the Upper God King Lanling God King, from the void who made a move, triggering a series of pale blue protective auras, enveloping the divine city masters and true gods below who could not resist, allowing these God Kings and true gods to finally settle down again. This situation made all the lower God Kings realize that Qin Feng's currently activated moves might likely reach a level capable of defeating many lower God Kings. How could this not astonish these divine city masters who were merely at the level of lower God Kings? Even City Lord Nie's expression underwent a drastic change at this time. He had not expected Qin Feng to be so formidable. As soon as the trial exchange was over, he had unleashed such a trump card. Now, facing these thousands of clusters of fiery red divine flames, even he felt somewhat overwhelmed. Zhao Luo, who was the closest to the battle between Yi Chen and Qin Feng, could not withstand the power emanating from those terrifying clusters of crimson-red divine flames, and it was only because Lin Xiaowan took action that he could continue to stay in place and watch the battle. But when Zhao Luo looked at Qin Feng again, he was filled with worry for Yi Chen. Qin Feng has used his trump card. Can Yi Chen still block it? While Zhao Luo was extremely worried, in the void, Qin Feng, who had stimulated the thousands of clusters of fiery red divine flames, looked down at Yi Chen and smirked coldly before pinching a spell in his hand. Whiz, 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 whiz. All of these fiery red divine flames suddenly converged into one, forming a gigantic firebird 1,000 feet in size in the void. This gigantic firebird even seemed like a living creature, its eyes sparkling with intelligence and even letting out several cries to the sky. Spirit communicating divine flame. Could it be that these divine flames were collected by Qin Feng from the Spirit Communication Divine Mountain? That place is where the true spirit sacred beast, the fiery 9 Brahma bird of Upper God King level, was nurtured. After the fiery 9 Brahma bird successfully struck at becoming an Upper God King, the feathers it shed turned into clusters of divine flames that constantly burned on the divine mountain. Rumor has it, when these divine flames gather together, they can even condense again into the spirit of the fiery 9 Brahma bird's divine powers. Although the spirit doesn't reach the level of an Upper God King, defeating many lower God Kings would be effortless. That Spirit Communication Divine Mountain is governed by the Tai Lin Divine Institute. It's very likely that Qin Feng obtained the opportunity from there to collect these divine flames. This is bad for Yi Chen. Facing such a spirit of divine powers that can defeat many lower God Kings, with his 4 tribulations true God realm, he likely can't hold on at all. Several city masters, recognizing the origins of the gigantic firebird formed from the fiery red divine flames in the void, cried out in shock. Lanling God King, who presided over this divine city battle, also had a surge of brilliant light in his eyes. Indeed, It's the spirit-communicating divine flame collected from the spirit-communication divine mountain. A single cluster of divine flame might not be much, but these thousands of clusters can indeed condense a powerful, fiery 9 Brahma bird, spirit of divine powers. Now, if Yi Chun wants to withstand it, relying solely on his previous moves will certainly not be enough. At this moment, seeing the gigantic spirit-communicating firebird that could cry out to the sky and measuring 1,000 feet, Yi Chun narrowed his eyes too. Looking at this gigantic firebird, Yi Chun remembered the huge fire sparrow he had subdued when he first entered the Taishan sect on the lower realm. The divine might of the giant fire sparrow, of course, could not compare to the gigantic firebird that Qin Feng had provoked. That giant fire sparrow was now only at the middle stage of the Dan rotation realm. When Yi Chun left the barbaric wilderness continent to come to the divine kingdom, he brought it back to his clan to protect his father, mother, and tower. But now, facing this gigantic firebird evoked by Qin Feng, Yi Chun felt that it was about as strong as the lower god king Sima Feng, whom he had battled against before. It looks like it's time to face this battle seriously. Just as this thought flashed through Yi Chun's mind, the gigantic firebird in the void, following a soft whistle from Qin Feng, also issued a soft whistle and, with a flap of its immense fiery wings, dived towards Yi Chun. Seeing the gigantic firebird swooping down on him, Yi Chun instantly burst into the void. With a flicker of divine light between his eyebrows and a whiz, his natal flying sword, Crimson Fire, flew straight out. Bang! 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 Once the Crimson Fire flying sword was unleashed, it instantly generated an endless torrent of sword light. Within the endless sword light, the Crimson Fire flying sword instantly turned into 18 flying sword shadows, forming 18 terrifying whirlwinds of the eyes of storms, completely enveloping Yi Chun. It was as though there were 18 terrifying whirlwinds of lethal force flashing around Yi Chun's body. The next moment, the 18 flying sword shadows, forming those terrifying whirlwinds, collided with the gigantic fire sparrow that was swooping down from the void. Everyone saw Yi Chun pinch a spell with his hand, stirring up a series of terrifying flying sword tornadoes with 18 winds of the storm, slicing apart layer by layer of divine flames on the surface of the gigantic firebird. At the same time, the gigantic firebird's pair of fiery red giant claws also flashed past the 18 flying sword shadows and reached for Yi Chun's body. In an instant, amid a thunderous explosion, Yi Chun, shrouded by the 18 storm vortices, and the gigantic firebird violently collided and both retreated hundreds of feet into the void to stabilize once more. Everyone saw that Yi Chun was still wrapped in the 18 storm vortices flying sword shadows, unscathed, while the gigantic firebird had many of its divine flames sliced off its body. After unleashing the flying sword, Yi Chun successfully blocked the gigantic firebird's attack. Even the gigantic firebird's pair of fiery red giant claws aiming to rip into Yi Chun caused him no harm. This scene, witnessed by the real gods and city masters present, made them all tremble in their hearts. They had not expected that even Qin Feng, who had summoned the spirit of the fiery 9 Brahma bird, was still unable to suppress Yi Chun, who was merely a 4 tribulations true god. At the highest reaches of the void, the upper god king Lanling god king was completely shaken at this moment upon seeing the 18 flying sword shadows around Yi Chun. Flying swords, they are top-grade heaven-reaching divine artifacts. That killing move, it's a heaven-reaching divine art as well. Heavens, this youth, who didn't use this technique before, I didn't expect that he actually cultivated such a terrifying flying sword heaven-reaching divine art. It seems that this youth's origin is definitely not ordinary. It's very likely that he is an enormous talent from one of the divine kingdom's major forces. Lanling God King couldn't help but inquire to City Lord Nye of the circulation of Heaven Divine City, and City Lord Nye also gave a wry smile and shook his head to Lanling God King. He didn't know the origin of Yi Chun either. In the void, when he saw the attack of the huge fire sparrow blocked, Qin Feng's expression darkened, and with a pinch of his hand forming a spell, the huge fire sparrow which had lost much of its divine flame in the sky seemed to be more intensely spurred on as it roared towards the heavens, its divine flame billowing as it burned and surged once more towards Yi Chun. At the same time, Qin Feng suddenly slapped his head, and a small green bell flew out from within him instantly. Upon flickering, the green bell emitted a soul-seizing sound, which ferociously howled as it assaulted Yi Chen's mind. At this moment, Yi Chun, surrounded by the 18 flying sword shadows, saw Qin Feng's continuous attacks, but his eyes remained still and undisturbed. He reached out and grasped, and the 18 flying sword shadows directly formed into one giant flying sword, which fell into his hand. You think I'll just passively defend? You thought wrong. Soul-seizing sound, how could it disturb my attack? My 9 swords of annihilation are indeed true divine soul attack, heaven-reaching divine arts. Yi Chen's hand suddenly swung the flying sword towards the ground, and even though the ground had been specially refined to withstand huge impacts, it burst apart layer by layer. Following that, an endless surge of the earth's essence madly flocked towards Yi Chun. In the entire void, a sword cry of ultimate clarity rang out. This sword cry completely suppressed even the soul-seizing sound emitted by Qin Feng's green bell, and at the same time, the entire flying sword soared from Yi Chen's hand, turning into an unbelievable sword light that shot straight at the huge fire sparrow. Simultaneously, Yi Chen's body explosively moved, reaching the huge fire sparrow alongside the flying sword. The star god power in Yi Chun, combined with the strengths of the undying divine body and the icebound divine body, suddenly coursed into his hands. Yi Chun actually grabbed the giant fire sparrow's head directly with his hands and then ferociously yanked it, violently tearing apart layer upon layer of terrifying divine flames on the fire sparrow's head. In an agonizing cry, the giant fire sparrow was also pierced straight through by the second sword of 9 swords of annihilation, Wandiding. Even though this sword did not completely eliminate all the divine flames of the huge fire sparrow, it still bore a large hole through its body. When the huge hole began to mend, the aura of the giant fire sparrow weakened by more than 1/10. And of course, Yi Chun would not give the giant fire sparrow any time to breathe. His mighty divine power surged out once more, grabbing towards the giant fire sparrow. At the same time, the second move of 9 swords of annihilation, Wandiding, once again formed a killing move, crazily assaulting the fire sparrow again. It seemed that Yi Chun intended to completely tear apart this giant fire sparrow formed from countless clusters of divine flames. Stay updated via novelbin.com. This scene, seen by the lower god kings of the divine cities, made them all draw in a cold breath. They were completely horrified in their hearts. This youth, Yi Chun, was too fierce. Even the fiery 9 Brahma bird, a spirit of divine powers that many lower god kings could defeat, Yi Chun dared to directly and violently tear it apart. Terrifying. Too terrifying. At this moment, these city lords and the true gods beside them came to realize just how formidable this 4 tribulations true god youth in front of them was. They now knew that even they were completely no match for this 4 tribulations true god. No wonder the circulation of heaven divine city brought this 4 tribulations true god youth to participate in the divine city battle. This youth is simply too ferociously powerful. It's likely that even many upper echelons cultivated by the divine venerable in the divine kingdom wouldn't dare to say that they are more formidable than this youth. While these city lords and true gods were in shock, Qin Feng's complexion had completely changed. He would certainly not allow the divine flame and divine might he had painstakingly collected to be continuously damaged. Seeing Yi Chun constantly tearing and slashing the divine flame's divine might, Qin Feng's expression darkened as he pinched his hands together, forming a spell. The giant fire sparrow no longer dared to entangle with Yi Chun. With a tragic wail, it crazily retreated and finally turned into a fiery red streak of light, flying into Qin Feng's body. And at that moment, Qin Feng, with a grim expression, opened his mouth and spouted out a green orb that came straight from within him, floating in front of him. Upon seeing this green orb, the other 2 9 tribulations true gods from Tai Lin Divine Institute had their complexions change. Big Brother is about to use his ultimate move. Yi Chun, at this time seeing this green orb, also felt an unprecedented sense of crisis. His expression darkened as the flying sword in his hand flashed with divine light, and the killing power of the third sword of 9 swords of annihilation began to gather. Chapter 673 Victory and Defeat. Thud. 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 As Qin Feng ejected the green bead, it swiftly spun and shot straight into the void above with bursts of light flickering from it. With each flicker, the green bead released swathes of a faint greenish void wind blade, and after over a dozen flickers, the sky was densely packed with these terrifying blades. Each blade shimmered with an inconceivable killing force, where their collective might could effortlessly annihilate many a lower god king. Clearly, this green bead was an incredible divine treasure, even more terrifying than the 10,000 ghosts banner wielded by the lower god king, Sima Feng, whom Yi Chun had battled in the buried Dragon Mountain range of the Dragon Star continent. Even Qin Feng couldn't fully unleash the power of this divine treasure. Now, having forcefully stimulated the bead to unleash a series of void wind blades, his complexion had turned pale. Yet in Qin Feng's heart, the array of blades he had released should be more than enough to defeat Yi Chun, who might even fall here and now if he didn't surrender. But was it truly as Qin Feng had anticipated? On the other side, seeing the myriad of terrifying wind blades released by the green bead, Yi Chen's expression was solemn, yet he wasn't the least bit panicked. If he had not undergone multiple heavenly tribulations before, indeed he may not have been able to withstand such a fearsome attack. But now, after the transformation through heavenly tribulations, his essence, chi, and spirit had strengthened countless times, having broken through from the late stages of the heavenly saint to the 4 tribulations true God realm. With the powerful divine soul of a 4 tribulations true God and the stellar power of over 1,800 stellar vortices condensed by the primordial chapter of the primordial star scripture, Yi Chun, summoning his most powerful heaven-reaching divine art, the 9 swords of annihilation's third sword, no longer feared this level of assault. 9 swords of annihilation's third sword, void shattering. Facing the onslaught of wind blades driven by Qin Feng, Yi Chun amassed endless power and slashed out with the third of the 9 swords of annihilation. With one slash, a vast expanse of the void shattered, forming a colossal sword-shaped void black hole. The sword-shaped void black hole, with its terrifying pull, not only swept up all nearby faint greenish wind blades into it, but also the blades far away were all absorbed. In an instant, the wind blades dispersed by the green bead in the void had nearly all vanished. Even under the overwhelming force of void shattering, the bead that had released endless wind blades seemed to recoil. Sensing the threat, it shot back towards Qin Feng. Divine treasures are naturally occurring objects, which only after being obtained by martial artists, are nurtured to be used as one's own. Qin Feng had never seen his wind spirit divine bead, famed in the divine kingdom's notorious, devouring cold abyss, retreat without a fight like this. This was his ultimate move, yet it was still wholly repelled, even turned back by Yi Chun. Now, Qin Feng at last realized that the youth before him, in the realm of the 4 tribulations true God, wielded a might even greater than his own, capable of slaying many lower god kings just the same. As Qin Feng was flabbergasted, the third strike of the 9 swords of annihilation, unleashed by Yi Chun, having obliterated the countless wind blades from the green bead, suddenly surged with residual force and slammed right in front of Qin Feng. Despite Qin Feng wearing a protective divine garment of unparalleled defensive power, he was sent flying thousands of zhang away, crashing far off onto the ground below. Whoosh! This scene sent the entire place into an uproar. No one expected the outcome of the clash to see Yi Chun, a 4 tribulations true God, completely overpower Qin Feng of the Tai Lin Divine Institute, a 9 tribulations true God. Had Qin Feng not relied on the divine power in his body to halt his backward flight, he would not have flown back just thousands of zhang. He would have been completely blown off the arena, losing the match outright. Even though he was not defeated yet, by barely clinging onto the edge of the arena, everyone knew that if it happened once, it could happen again, and Qin Feng probably wouldn't be able to withstand Yi Chen's attacks any longer. At that moment, all eyes turned towards the circulation of Heaven Divine City, towards City Lord Nye. And City Lord Nye, his fists clenched with excitement. City Lord Nye had considered the possibility that Yi Chun and Lin Xiaowan could help him win the Divine City battle, but even as the moment arrived, he was still overwhelmed with excitement. In contrast, God King Wuzan of Mingji Divine City, on the other side, was filled with disbelief. God King Wuzan couldn't believe the powerful ally he had invited from the Tai Lin Divine Institute would lose to a Four Tribulations true god. After all, Qin Feng had the strength to defeat many lower god kings. He couldn't even block the attack of the Four Tribulations true god youth. Doesn't that mean that this Four Tribulations true god youth could also defeat countless lower god kings? A Four Tribulations true god can defeat many lower god kings. The implication of this realization made even God King Wuzan draw in a cold breath. Such a cross-realm talent capable of challenging far beyond his own, if placed in the presence of many major forces in the Divine Kingdom, would incite a frantic scramble for him. Even within the 9 Divine Institutes, he would still stand out immensely. Now, such a youth had actually appeared in the small skirmishes of the Divine City in the small Divine Kingdom of the Southern Territory. Something God King Wuzan found unbelievable. It wasn't just God King Wuzan who couldn't believe it. Even the upper God King, Lanling God King, who presided over the battle from the void, looked at Yi Chun in the fighting arena with a gleam in his eyes. He even thought of taking Yi Chun, a person of such talent, back to the Southern Territory King Mansion to be properly cultivated. However, this thought had barely flashed in Lanling God King's mind before he abandoned it. Lanling God King knew that this kind of youth wouldn't wait for the Southern Territory King Mansion to recruit him. With the realm of the Four Tribulations true god, he possessed combat power enough to defeat lower god kings and was endowed with an undying divine body and had cultivated heaven-reaching divine arts. Just these means alone let Lanling God King know that the major figure backing this youth was very likely no weaker than the sovereign of the Southern Territory King Mansion. While various city lords and true gods in the void had their own thoughts, down on the ground Yi Chun, who had just broken Qin Feng's ultimate killing move with a single sword and sent Qin Feng flying thousands of feet away, took a step into the void and appeared in front of the struggling Qin Feng. The crimson fire, flying sword circled around Yi Chun's body as an immense aura surged from him. He looked directly at Qin Feng and asked indifferently, "Do you concede?" Clearly, if Qin Feng didn't concede, Yi Chun would launch another attack and completely blast him out of the fighting arena. Concede. Facing Yi Chun, who now stood before him like a giant mountain, the thought of conceding actually flashed through Qin Feng's mind. However, thinking about how conceding would not only mean God King Wuzan would lose his bet with City Lord Nye, but he and the other 2 Tai Lin God Kings, all 3 Tribulation true gods, would lose their spots to go to the 9 Suns ancient land and lose the chance to meet the first goddess, Long Li, of the Supreme Divine Institute. Qin Feng definitely didn't want to concede. "No, I will never concede." After letting out a great shout, Qin Feng's eyes turned blood red, and he burst out a jade pendant to save his life. This jade pendant wasn't a skill of his own but had been specifically refined for him by a middle god king powerhouse in his family to give him one chance to save his life and launch a powerful one-time attack in the Tai Lin Divine Institute. Qin Feng squeezed the jade pendant without reservation, triggering its strongest attack in an attempt to kill Yi Chun on the spot. In the Divine City battles, life or death struggles were not shunned, but many would stop their killing once victory was determined. Someone like Qin Feng, who resorted to using his life-saving method without hesitation, was unprecedented among the 18 divine cities. Seeing the jade pendant flare up, even evoking the aura of a middle god king in battle, changed the expressions of many city lords on the scene, some even crying out in alarm. City Lord Nye's complexion also changed drastically. He wanted to save Yi Chun but knew his own power absolutely couldn't block the terrible attack from the jade pendant. Lanling God King, who presided over the Divine City battle, also did not expect Qin Feng to resort to such a deadly move in the end. He could help Yi Chun block it, but according to the rules, he was not allowed to intervene in the Divine City battles, or else he couldn't explain himself to the Southern Territory King Mansion. Could this youth fall to the killing force of the Middle God King's refined jade pendant? The thought flashed through Lanling God King's mind, but as soon as it appeared, Lanling God King completely suppressed it, instantly realizing something. Yi Chun, a youth who possessed such formidable combat power even at the Four Tribulations' true god realm, could not possibly lack a final defensive trump card. Indeed, even if Qin Feng fought desperately, Yi Chun might still have the means to cope. Apart from Lanling God King, who could block this terrible move, Lin Xiaowan, who was not far from Yi Chun, also had a magical secret treasure that could help Yi Chun withstand it. When she saw the attack launched by Qin Feng, Lin Xiaowan was ready to fly into the arena in a flash and break Qin Feng's fatal strike. But as she was about to move, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. Because Lin Xiaowan saw that facing Qin Feng's final life and death strike, Yi Chun showed no fear. Instead, his gaze grew colder as he suddenly flipped out a treasure from his palm. This treasure was astonishingly a palm-sized snow-white stone figure. Boom! The palm-sized snow-white stone figure that emerged from Yi Chun's hand instantly flew out, transforming into a huge and remarkable snow-white puppet. With an open mouth, the snow-white puppet suddenly swallowed, absorbing the terrifying killing light unleashed by Qin Feng's desperately crushed life-saving jade pendant into its belly. The fearsome killing force fashioned by the Middle God King was completely swallowed by this snow-white puppet, totally consumed within its belly. Furthermore, with a fierce stomp, the snow-white puppet appeared instantly in front of the dumbfounded Qin Feng. The puppet reached out and grabbed Qin Feng like picking up a small chicken, then with a swift motion, smashed him onto the ground. Even as a Nine Tribulations true god, Qin Feng was smashed so hard by this blow that his blood sprayed wildly. His divine power was annihilated. His divine body dissipated, and he was thoroughly reduced to a cripple. Explore more adventures at novelbin.com. Chapter 674 – The Power of the Divine Kingdom. This snow-white puppet was, of course, one of the 3 frozen puppets Yi Chun obtained from the treasury of the frozen Divine King. Just as Qin Feng had a life-saving jade pendant, Yi Chun also had 3 life-saving frozen puppets. The life-saving jade pendant forged by Qin Feng was made by a Middle God King, and its maximum strength could only reach a level close to that of a Middle God King. However, Yi Chun's frozen puppets were crafted by an Upper God King. At their strongest, by consuming 10,000 divine stones, they could even reach the true might of a powerful Middle God King. Even if the Middle God King who helped craft Qin Feng's life-saving jade pendant were here, he wouldn't dare to claim he could stop the frozen puppets, let alone a life-saving jade pendant forged by a Middle God King. If Qin Feng intended to kill Yi Chun would certainly not go easy on Qin Feng. He drove the frozen puppet to obliterate the power of the life-saving jade pendant and at the same time, incapacitated Qin Feng completely. If it weren't for the fact that there were too many people present, Yi Chun would have even killed Qin Feng outright. Yi Chun was certainly not one to show mercy. However, although he didn't kill him by completely incapacitating Qin Feng, Yi Chun ensured that he had no chance of retaliation whatsoever. This was the consequence of Qin Feng's lethal attempt on Yi Chun. Yi Chun looked coldly at Qin Feng, who had already fainted, his gaze then shifting to the frozen puppet in the center of the arena. The frozen puppet delivered a hefty kick, kicking Qin Feng entirely out of the fighting ring. Then, Yi Chun reached toward the frozen puppet in the air, causing it to shrink instantaneously before he collected it back into his possession. Afterward, Yi Chun looked up at Lanling God King in the void and asked aloud, "Senior Lanling, the 3 rounds have concluded. Please announce the results of the battle." Boom! Yi Chun's ruthless move and his calm demeanor after incapacitating Qin Feng made many small divine city lords shudder inwardly. Experience tales at novelbin.com. Of course, they didn't sympathize with Qin Feng. They all clearly saw how Qin Feng made the first move to kill Yi Chun. If they had the capability, they would do the same to incapacitate or even kill Qin Feng. The true reason these small city lords shuddered was that they were in awe of Yi Chun's potent methods and his calm demeanor at the end. These lords, having weathered many storms themselves, knew that a person with such a mindset and talent could one day become someone they would look up to. And now, the 2 Tailin God Kings from the Tailin Divine Institute, Wang Lian and Wang Shan, who had come with Qin Feng, were completely dizzy. "Brother Qin Feng, he's become a cripple?" Wang Lian and Wang Shan could scarcely believe the scene before their eyes. They had not expected that in their quest to secure a spot in the Nine Suns' ancient land. Not only did they fail to seize the spot, but they also suffered such a disastrous defeat, even causing their strongest Qin Feng to become a cripple. Wang Lian and Wang Shan knew Qin Feng's background and knew that there was even a heavenly divine venerable within his family's ranks. However, with Qin Feng now a cripple, whether that heavenly divine venerable would seek revenge was uncertain. After all, a cripple had no value. Seeing Yi Chen's utterly calm gaze, Wang Lian and Wang Shan felt their hearts pound even faster. They even had a premonition that even if that heavenly divine venerable descended to seek revenge on Yi Chen might not fear him at all. These two true gods of 9 calamities weren't wrong in their guess. Facing Qin Feng, who wanted to kill him, Yi Chen would not hesitate. But he also had an absolute life-saving trump card, which was the protection talisman given to him by the East Territory King. Qin Feng took lethal action, and of course, Yi Chen would incapacitate him. The cause and consequences were known by many in the arena. Qin Feng brought it upon himself, so he could hardly blame Yi Chen. Even if someone were to seek vengeance, Yi Chen had the East Territory King's life-saving card, so he didn't have to worry. Once he entered the Nine Suns' ancient land, and then joined one of the 9 great divine institutes, he would worry even less. Yi Chen didn't believe that Qin Feng, who only had a jade pendant forged by a middle god king, could possibly call upon someone who the East Territory King would fear. While Yi Chen's eyes flickered in thought, Lin Xiaowan's voice also entered his mind. Yi Chen, don't worry. This person tried to harm you grievously, so incapacitating him is his own fault. You joined this fight to secure a spot in the Nine Suns' ancient land to accompany me. If anyone troubles you because of this, I will help you and completely resolve this trouble. In Lin Xiaowan's voice, there was absolute confidence. Having the chance to join the Supreme Divine Institute, she was already stronger than Qin Feng of the Tailin Divine Institute. Furthermore, behind her stood the might of the Lin family's great figure, an immortal divine venerable. Hearing Lin Xiaowan's words, Yi Chen nodded with a smile toward her. At that moment, the Upper God King, Lanling God King, who presided over the battle of divine cities from the void, finally spoke. The 17 rounds of the battle are now concluded. The final victor is Circulation of Heaven Divine City. The 10 spots to go to the Nine Suns' ancient land belong to Circulation of Heaven Divine City. On the day when the Nine Suns' ancient land opens, these 10 tokens will be personally distributed to you by the Southern Territory King Mansion. When the time comes, just head to the gathering place of the Nine Suns' ancient land directly. At this point, the Lanling God King paused, his gaze shifting toward Yi Chen, and then toward Wang Lian and Wang Shan, who had accompanied Qin Feng. As for the outcome of the final battle, I saw it all with my own eyes. Since everyone participated in the battle for the Divine City, of course, the result, life or death, must all be adhered to. Had Yi Chen been defeated and perished at the hands of Qin Feng, I would have said the same. Now that Qin Feng lies defeated at Yi Chen's hand, my stance remains unchanged. That is to say, the outcome of the battle for the Divine City must be honored by all, and the rules of the battle for the Divine City must likewise be respected by all. No one can seek revenge because of life or death that resulted from the battle. To go against this would be to defy the rules of the entire Southern Territory King Mansion, who will personally take action and completely erase the one seeking revenge. The words of the Lanling God King were clearly meant for Wang Lian and Wang Shan to convey back to Qin Feng's clan members. Upon hearing these words, Wang Lian and Wang Shan both shuddered, thinking of the powerful sovereign realm existence of the Southern Territory King Mansion. They knew that, with such a statement, even the heavenly divine venerable with the courage of the heavens behind Qin Feng wouldn't dare make the slightest move. The battle for Divine City at Circulation of Heaven Divine City finally concluded, determining the 10 slots for the Nine Suns' ancient land. In the southern territory of the Wan Miao Divine Kingdom, countless small divine cities, also vying for slots to the Nine Suns' ancient land, were similarly conducting their battles, with results continuously decided. In the great divine cities of the Wan Miao Divine Kingdom, the 10 slots for each city were also being allocated without end. As for the most precious 10 God King slots, They too had long since found their owners. In the southern territory of the Wan Miao Divine Kingdom, in its grandest divine city, Wan Miao Divine City, there were two mansions. One was known as Mu King Mansion, and the other was Hong Royal Mansion, built by the ruler of the entire Divine Kingdom's Southern Territory, the Southern Territory King. At this moment, in a grand hall of Hong Royal Mansion, a towering figure sat in the seat of honor. Below him, two middle-aged men knelt, while two young men stood respectfully. The towering figure, dressed in blue robes, was a dignified middle-aged man whose presence was marked by an intensely formidable aura of the sovereign realm. Looking at him, one could even see divine light shining and stars transforming, as if countless stars were studded on his clothing. This person was indeed the powerful 8-star sovereign realm figure, the Southern Territory King Hong Xuanzong. At that time, the Southern Territory King looked at the two middle-aged men kneeling on the ground and asked one of them, "Did the Mu King Mansion receive the two God King tokens sent to the old Territory King Mansion for the Nine Suns ancient land?" The middle-aged man addressed by the Southern Territory King promptly responded, "Reporting to the sovereign, those two tokens have been received by the Mu King Mansion." It is said that the Mu King Mansion's young princess and the third young master had reserved these two tokens long ago, both intending to visit the Nine Suns ancient land. The Southern Territory King nodded and smiled. "Mu Ling, that girl, she does enjoy the excitement, probably wants to join in the fun with Long Li in the Nine Suns ancient land. Those two tokens can be arranged by the old Territory King Mansion as they see fit." After expressing this sentiment, he looked toward the other middle-aged man and inquired, "And about the other two tokens, has Divine Miao Peak accepted them?" Replying to the sovereign, Divine Miao Peak, as usual, did not regard the tokens for the Nine Suns ancient land highly. Even though Long Li will be going to the Nine Suns ancient land this time, they still rejected the two tokens, answered the middle-aged man hastily. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, the Southern Territory King sighed deeply and shook his head, saying no more. If Yi Chun had heard the Southern Territory King's words, he would have been undoubtedly astonished. The Mu King Mansion and Divine Miao Peak, involved in the distribution of God King slots by the Southern Territory King, were directly related to the task entrusted to him by the old Southern Territory King, the hermit known as the Old Man, during their encounter in the underwater Divine Palace. The two inheritance beads containing the Old Man's countless years of cultivation insights, one blue and one purple, were meant for Yi Chun to deliver, one to the descendants of the Mu King Mansion, the other to those of Divine Miao Peak. That Mu King Mansion was indeed the hermit's own family mansion, and that Divine Miao Peak, whether from the perspective of the hermit or from the current behavior of the Southern Territory King, was presumably also a significant force in the Divine Kingdom Southern Territory. It appeared that even the Southern Territory King seemingly found himself in a difficult position with them. After another sigh, the Southern Territory King turned his attention to the two young men standing respectfully in the Grand Hall. This time, a total of 10 slots to the Nine Suns ancient land have been appropriated. The Sovereign Xuechen, from the Supreme Divine Institute, personally came to me for 1 slot token for Long Li. The Divine Dragon Mountain, Dansha Valley, Taiyun Heaven, the 3 great forces, also came to me for their younger generation studying at the 9 great divine institutes, taking away 5 slot tokens. Ordinarily, these slots to the Nine Suns ancient land wouldn't be considered much. However, due to Long Li, countless individuals covet these slots, and I dare not provoke those 4 great forces above us and could only hand over the slots. Whatever I could refuse, I have refused. Now, I have 4 slots left in my hands. Initially, after allocating 4 slots to the Mu King Mansion and Divine Miao Peak, I would have had no slots left. Considering that our Southern Territory King Mansion has explored the Nine Suns ancient land many times, I had no intention of letting you two enter it. Now, since Divine Miao Peak has refused those 2 slots, in accordance with my previous promise to you, Hong Ming and Hong Yi, these 2 slots will be granted to you. Chapter 675, Blazing Sun Divine City. A streak of light shot out from Endless Mountain, flying towards the continental teleportation array of this part of the star continent at a speed that seemed to rip through the void. This streak of light was none other than Yi Chun, who had just completed the battle within Divine City and secured a spot to go to Nine Suns' ancient land. The Battle of Divine City had ended, and the crowd had dispersed. Among this group from Circulation of Heaven Divine City, Lin Xiaowan was set to return to the Supreme Divine Institute first, while City Lord Nye and Zhao Luo were hurrying back to Circulation of Heaven Divine City to prepare for their journey to Nine Suns' ancient land. Yi Chun bid them farewell, having arranged to meet them again before the opening of Nine Suns' ancient land. There was still 1 month left before the official opening of Nine Suns' ancient land. Yi Chun planned to go to Blazing Sun Divine City, outside Nine Suns' ancient land first. By now, numerous true gods and even divine kings must have rushed to Blazing Sun Divine City. This already bustling great divine city would undoubtedly be even more lively with the upcoming opening of Nine Suns' ancient land. Yi Chen's journey to Blazing Sun Divine City had a dual purpose: to wait for the official opening of Nine Suns' ancient land and to scour the Blazing Sun Divine City for items to prepare for his entrance into Nine Suns' ancient land. At present, Yi Chun had reached the realm of a Four Tribulations true god. The leap in strength brought about by the successful boundary breakthrough had been deeply felt by Yi Chun during the recent battle in Divine City, and it also motivated him to continue striving towards the realm of a Five Tribulations true god and even higher. The Green Spirit Dragon Fruit and Thunder Beast Crystal that Yi Chun had acquired at the Buried Dragon Mountain Range played a large role during his boundary breakthrough. To further improve his realm, continuing to search for necessary cultivation resources was definitely a must. At the same time, the terrifying crisis he had faced while overcoming several layers of heavenly tribulations not long ago made Yi Chun constantly vigilant in his heart. Before the next heavenly tribulation arrived, preparing more methods to cope with it was also something Yi Chun needed to consider. There was also the gathering of information related to Nine Suns' ancient land. Furthermore, he needed to stock up on more divine stones to power the ice-sealed puppets, ensuring that he had enough divine stones to activate 3 ice-sealed puppets in case of emergencies after entering Nine Suns' ancient land. Whether it was preparing cultivation resources, methods to deal with heavenly tribulations, or gathering information about Nine Suns' ancient land, Blazing Sun Divine City was very suitable. On one hand, Blazing Sun Divine City was a great divine city with numerous resources. On the other hand, it was currently the moment when many warriors were converging at Blazing Sun Divine City, before the opening of Nine Suns' ancient land, so there was likely to be a lot of treasure trading and information exchange taking place. Ha ha! Yi Chun, your vitality will cultivation combined with overcoming the heavenly tribulations to achieve 4 tribulations true God has greatly enhanced your strength. At this moment, Xiaojiu had transformed into a tiny spiritual sparrow and flew onto Yi Chen's shoulder, laughing and saying to Yi Chun, with the opening of Nine Suns' ancient land this time, aside from those 10 powerful divine kings entering it, there might not be many at the true God stage who can overpower you. Since that first goddess Long Li of the Supreme Divine Institute who can battle upper god kings comparable to heavenly divine venerables, is also going to Nine Suns' ancient land, it indicates that there might indeed be some miraculous things inside it. This time, you can also try to explore Nine Suns' ancient land in depth. This time, because of Long Li, it was clear without thinking that the strength of the 10 divine kings entering Nine Suns' ancient land would be incredibly formidable. With Yi Chen's current strength, even if he could defeat many lower god kings, the gap with these 10 would still be immense. Read latest stories on novelbin.com. However, as Xiaojiu said, aside from these 10 divine kings, Yi Chun could indeed compete with the other true gods who were entering Nine Suns' ancient land. I hope that this time in Nine Suns' ancient land, I can gain some benefits. The greatest benefits will probably go to Long Li and those 9 other divine kings, but it would be nice to get some other benefits and enhance my strength as well, Yi Chun said to Xiaojiu with a light laugh. Xiaojiu blinked and laughed. That's not necessarily true. While those 10 divine kings are indeed terrifyingly powerful, fortune and treasures also depend on destiny. Plus, with my assistance, even though those divine kings who got the spot might come from extraordinary origins, I am the 9-spirit Sparrow Emperor left by Lord Emperor Yen, and my divine soul sensing is not weak either. Maybe if we work together, Yi Chun, you could also gain a lot. At the same time, Xiaojiu also started to feel expectant. They all say that the first goddess of the Supreme Divine Institute, Long Li, is incomparably beautiful and extraordinarily talented. I really want to see what she looks like, and whether she's more beautiful than Sister Jiang Yao. Hearing the first part of Xiaojiu's words, Yichun was nodding, but when he heard Xiaojiu comparing Long Li with Jiang Yao, he couldn't help but laugh. Was Xiaojiu, a nine-spirit sparrow, also so gossipy? Even if that Long Li is beautiful, she definitely can't be more beautiful than Sister Jiang Yao, chimed in the little monkey, turning into a streak of light and landing on the other shoulder of Yichun. Although the little fellow still couldn't speak directly, it had long been able to communicate using divine sense, and it instantly rebutted Xiaojiu's words. You little one, only at the late stage of the spinning Dan realm, dare to contradict me. Xiaojiu playfully scolded the little monkey. Watching Xiaojiu and the little monkey bicker, Yichun smiled gently. Although Xiaojiu had been imbued with a lot of knowledge by Lord Emperor Yen, it had only been born from the seabed divine palace shortly before the great cleansing calamity came, so it was still very young. The little monkey had been born not long after he entered the ancestral land. It too was incredibly young. Listening to their bickering made Yichun's flying journey less lonely. Half an hour later, Yichun finally arrived at another intercontinental transmission array location on this part of the star continent where the circulation of Heaven Divine City was situated. This transmission location was different from the ones he had used when he went to other star continents to unlock the treasures of the frozen Divine King. This transmission array was located in the central region of the star continent, and it even had arrays that led to many great divine cities in the southern territory of the Divine Kingdom. Yichun, carrying Xiaojiu and the little monkey, went straight through one of the arrays and entered another star continent in the southern territory. After several transmissions, he finally arrived at his ultimate destination, the great divine city outside the Nine Suns ancient land, Blazing Sun Divine City. Blazing Sun Divine City was an unbelievably vast city suspended in the void outside the Nine Suns ancient land. Rumors had it that this divine city did not previously exist. It was created after the discovery of the Nine Suns ancient land, when an immortal divine venerable from the Southern Territory King Mansion of the Divine Kingdom personally lifted an entire region of the star continent along with several immensely huge mountain ranges and, using astounding divine powers, moved them to the void outside the Nine Suns ancient land, eventually forging Blazing Sun Divine City. Blazing Sun Divine City was countless times larger than the smaller circulation of Heaven Divine City. The countless buildings throughout the entire Divine City were radiating dazzling divine light like the blazing sun, shining across the void day and night without dimming or extinguishing. This was the origin of the name Blazing Sun Divine City. As Yichun emerged from the transmission array hall in Blazing Sun Divine City and saw the colossal buildings, and the countless warriors flying or moving around in the sky and on the ground, and heard the bustling noise of the entire city, he felt deeply awestruck. Chapter 676- Divine Stone, Tattered Cloth. After finding an inn in Blazing Sun Divine City, Xiaojiu took the little monkey out to gather information, while Yichun began to meditate and regulate his breath in his room. Not long after Yichun had replenished his energy from the journey and reflected on his combat experiences in the battles of Divine City, Xiaojiu and the little monkey returned with the information they had gathered. Xiaojiu, indeed a powerful member of the Nine-Spirit Sparrow clan, was not only shrewd but also extremely intelligent. In a short time, she managed to find out a great deal of the information Yichun needed. From Xiaojiu's description, supplemented by the little monkey, Yichun learned that Blazing Sun Divine City was specifically built by the Southern Territory King Mansion to guard the Nine Suns ancient land and is always guarded by 3 heavenly divine venerables of the Southern Territory King Mansion. And the Nine Suns ancient land would only open at specific times, being completely sealed by the prohibitive formations laid down by the Southern Territory King Mansion on regular days. In Blazing Sun Divine City, apart from the 3 heavenly divine venerables, there were also many earth divine venerables. As for divine kings and warriors of the true God realm, they were simply too numerous to count. Moreover, with the impending opening of the Nine Suns ancient land and the rumors of the Long Li, the maiden of the Supreme Divine Institute, coming to the Nine Suns ancient land, many martial artists from different parts of the Divine Kingdom flocked to the Blazing Sun Divine City. At this moment, Blazing Sun Divine City was indeed 100 times livelier than usual. As for the matters Yi Chun was most concerned about, finding resources for cultivation and the divine stones needed for activating the icebound puppets, Xiaojiu also brought back an important piece of news. That was, in 8 days' time, there would be a massive trading conference taking place in Blazing Sun Divine City. Xiaojiu further mentioned that the scale of the upcoming trading conference was huge, and due to the influx of countless martial artists into Blazing Sun Divine City, the treasures to be traded would definitely not be few. Whether it was the divine stones needed for activating the icebound puppets that Yi Chen was looking for, precious cultivation resources, or even some rarely seen divine treasures and artifacts and possibly even artifacts of heaven, it was very likely they would appear at the conference. As long as one had enough black divine coins, it was very likely they could find anything they desired. Hearing this news, a spark flashed in Yi Chen's eyes. Apart from the 1 million black divine coins that the king of the Eastern Territory had left him, of which much remained, he had also obtained 10 million black divine coins left to him by the icebound divine king from his treasure trove. This fortune, although not comparable to many middle god kings, was far more than the majority of lower divine kings. It was already enough for Yi Chun to shop for what he wanted at the trading conference Xiaojiu mentioned. And if that wasn't enough, Yi Chun also had some treasures on him that he could exchange for more black divine coins. After finding out the information he wanted, Yi Chun chatted with Xiaojiu and the little monkey for a bit. He didn't go wandering around Blazing Sun Divine City but continued to cultivate with closed eyes in his room. Without taking the first step, there can be no journey of 1,000 miles. Yi Chun understood this principle. Only with the accumulation of each day's efforts could his strength continue to grow. It wasn't until 8 days had passed, the day of the trading conference Xiaojiu spoke of, that Yi Chun opened his eyes from cultivation. Let's go. Let's go see what the trading conference has to offer, Yi Chun said with a smile to Xiaojiu and the little monkey who had been eagerly waiting by his side. Xiaojiu and the little monkey nodded enthusiastically. When Yi Chun stepped out of the inn, he felt that Blazing Sun Divine City had become even more lively after a few days. Clearly, as the day the 9 Suns ancient land would open drew nearer, the number of martial artists entering Blazing Sun Divine City had increased even further. Continue reading stories on Novelbin.com. After crossing dozens of extremely long streets and even flying over several massive mountains within the city, Yi Chun finally arrived at the western side of Blazing Sun Divine City where the trading conference was being held. This grand trading conference, which always served as the main event before the opening of the 9 Suns ancient land, was specifically scheduled by the 3 heavenly divine venerables stationed in Blazing Sun Divine City from the Southern Territory King Mansion, organized by the mansion's martial artists. When Yi Chun arrived at the venue for the trading conference, he directly saw a treasure palace hundreds of zhang in circumference standing suspended in the void of this domain. The entire treasure palace was divided into 3 floors. Although this treasure palace was only a few hundred yards in diameter, Yi Chun knew that inside the palace there must be a special space forged, one that would be incredibly vast. Yi Chun personally witnessed thousands of martial artists flying into this treasure palace, and countless more continuously pouring in. If there wasn't a special space inside, the palace, which was only several hundred yards in diameter, would not be able to accommodate so many martial artists at all. It wouldn't be considered suitable for holding a grand-scale trade fair. Yi Chun, the 3 floors of this trade fair palace are divided for people of different realms to enter. The first floor is where martial artists of the true God realm conduct their trades. The second floor is for those of the God King realm, and as for the third floor, that's even for the divine venerable realm to trade. However, most of this trade fair is concentrated on the first floor, with very few martial artists from the God King realm and divine venerable realm on the second and third floors. Xiaojiu whispered to Yi Chun from his shoulder, transmitting her voice quietly. After Yi Chun nodded, he walked toward the entrance of the treasure palace. Upon reaching the entrance of the treasure palace, Yi Chun saw a team of guards clad in divine armor standing guard at the entrance. The leader of these guards was even a being from the Earth Divine Venerable rank, and the remaining 7 or 8 were all of the God King realm. All these guards were from the Southern Territory King Mansion stationed in Blazing Sun Divine City. The fact that an existence like an Earth Divine Venerable could only serve as the head of the guards in such a divine city hinted at the sheer might of the Southern Territory King Mansion. To enter this trade fair palace, one had to pay black divine coins. Simply entering the first-floor palace required a fee of 50,000 black divine coins. Not to mention getting to the higher floors, which made Yi Chun inwardly click his tongue in amazement. Given the number of people streaming into the trade fair palace, just the black divine coins collected at this trade fair would surely reach an astronomical figure. But on second thought, it made sense. The Southern Territory King Mansion was the overlord of this province in the Divine Kingdom, with countless martial artists to foster. What was an astronomical number to an individual martial artist was nothing for the Southern Territory King Mansion. After paying 50,000 black divine coins, Yi Chun smoothly entered the first floor of the Trade Fair Palace. Indeed, as Yi Chun had expected, the space inside the first floor was unbelievably vast. Even with his divine sense now capable of enveloping hundreds of miles, he couldn't see the end at a glance. In the entire space of the first-floor hall, there seemed to be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of stalls displaying trade goods, and the number was still increasing as the crowds kept flowing in. So many stalls, just taking a look once would take quite a bit of time, Yi Chun muttered softly. Xiaojiu, sitting on Yi Chun's shoulder, smiled and said to him, Yi Chun, there's no need to rush. This trade fair lasts for 10 days, plenty of time to properly pick out the things you need. Yi Chun nodded, released his divine sense, and began to search through the trade fair hall. Divine stones for powering combat puppets were easy to find. In just the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Yi Chun saw no less than dozens of stalls displaying divine stones. In the end, Yi Chun spent 500,000 black divine coins and bought another 300,000 divine stones. With the divine stones he had left, even if he were to drive 3 ice-sealed puppets with the strongest middle god king combat power, he would have enough to last a very long time. After finding the divine stones, Yi Chun continued to look for other items. After several more hours, Yi Chun had already purchased many precious treasures. However, as Yi Chun passed by a stall set up by a 9 Tribulations true god, Xiaojiu's voice suddenly transmitted in his mind, Yi Chun, that piece of rag on this stall seems a bit unusual. On hearing Xiaojiu's telepathic message, Yi Chun looked directly at the stall and saw that there were many treasures displayed, but in the center, there was a palm-sized piece of blue rag. Chapter 677 – The Magical Rag. Such a palm-sized piece of rag, given its placement at the center of the stall, evidently had something special about it. By now, quite a crowd had gathered around the stall, with many 9 Tribulations true gods scrutinizing the treasures on display, the most eye-catching of which was indeed the rag at the heart of the stall. Yi Chun let out a slight chuckle and then made his way towards the stall. Xiaojiu, being a member of the 9-Spirit Sparrow clan, possessed innate divine soul strength. With her caution, Yi Chun of course wanted to take a closer look. However, when Yi Chun's divine sense reached out to probe the rag, he let out a slight gasp of surprise. When his divine sense touched the rag, it was sharply rebounded, and had Yi Chun's divine soul not been strong enough, this rebound could have very well caused him some backlash. This, of course, astonished Yi Chun. Normally, treasures that have not been bound by a master can be probed with divine sense. Since this rag was put up for sale and clearly had no master, it was surprising that it could block probing and even cause a rebound. At this time, many of the martial artists who had just flocked to the stall, just like Yi Chun, were also probing the rag. However, many of them suffered from the rebound, with a few 9 Tribulations true gods suddenly turning pale, obviously having their divine souls attacked. These occurrences caused the complexions of those examining the rag to drastically change. Seeing the crowd's reactions, the stall owner laughed heartily and proclaimed, I suppose you all must have noticed something unusual about this rag of mine. With a grand gesture, the stall owner grasped the palm-sized rag in his hand and began showing it off to the people around. This cloth not only blocks the probing of the divine soul but also defends against divine soul attacks. And it's not just soul attacks. Even physical strength blows and true chi divine power attacks. This cloth can rebound them all. Unless a divine venerable realm powerhouse acts, it would be difficult to break through this rag. However, even if they did break it, the cloth can quickly heal and return to its original state. It would take an extraordinary divine venerable's power to completely destroy it. While speaking, the stall owner demonstrated to the crowd. His finger extended, and a powerful force began to accumulate on it, until the gathered energy was even stronger than that of Qin Feng, whom Yi Chen had battled in the divine city. Compared to Yi Chen's power, it was hardly any weaker. Certainly, this Nine Tribulations true god stall owner was no ordinary individual. His combat power was exceptionally extraordinary. This revelation surprised many of the true gods spectating. What surprised these onlookers even more was that, when the stall owner's power coalesced to an overwhelmingly strong point and he suddenly jabbed towards the rag. Such a jab could easily pierce through a giant mountain. Yet upon contacting the rag, a peculiar thing happened. Without any glow or flicker of light, the rag simply repelled the stall owner's attack completely. If the stall owner didn't prepare in advance and launched another blow to shatter the rebounding attack's force, it could have landed on the surrounding onlookers, potentially injuring many of them. This truly caused a dramatic shift in the onlookers' expressions. In the whole scene, the only ones who could remain calm were Yi Chen and a mere handful of others. But even Yi Chen now looked towards the rag with an extremely solemn gaze. Pity, if this rag weren't so small, if it weren't merely the size of a palm, it could have been an incredibly fierce defensive treasure, said one powerful Nine Tribulations true god who, like Yi Chen, managed to maintain composure, took a deep breath and spoke. Hearing the words of this Nine Tribulations true god, the other martial artists all nodded in agreement. Indeed, regardless of the rag's formidable defensive power, its small size rendered it of little use. One could simply target an area not protected by the rag to kill its user. Moreover, since the rag couldn't be integrated and bound to a master's divine soul, it was even easier for others to snatch it away. For a moment, many who were intrigued by this enigmatical rag began to hesitate on whether to purchase it. Enjoy new stories from Novelbin.com. Seeing the crowd's expressions, the stall owner sneered. If this cloth were larger than just a palm size, would I have brought it here to trade? Based on my guess, this rag might very well be a piece sheared off the divine robe of a formidable figure. It blocks all but the divine venerable realm powerhouses and could, therefore, come from a divine robe used by the venerables. If it were a complete divine venerable grade divine robe, the price would be astronomical, so much so that it wouldn't be here for sale, and you wouldn't be able to afford it anyway. The stall owner was speaking the truth. If it were a complete divine robe, one that only divine venerables could breach and would rapidly heal, indeed it wouldn't be available on the first floor of this trading hall. Not to mention these true gods, even god kings without substantial wealth, would absolutely not be able to afford it. The item is precious, indeed, but definitely has too small a defensive range. Stall owner, how many black divine coins are you asking for? Yi Chen, who had been silent, suddenly asked. Seeing the Four Tribulations true god Yi Chen inquire about the price, the stall owner was quite surprised. But, of course, he wouldn't refuse to sell just because the inquiring martial artist held a lower realm. The stall owner said with a smile, "The starting bid is 1 million black divine coins. If there are multiple parties interested, the price will increase by 100,000 black divine coins each time. The highest bidder will claim it." Hiss! The stall owner's words made the surrounding martial artists sharply inhale. 1 million black divine coins. To think that amount could buy a precious heaven-reaching divine artifact, and we're talking about a palm-sized ragged cloth? And this is just the starting price? The price has to be raised in competition. Even if this ragged cloth has a strong defensive power, its area is simply too small. Many shook their heads, giving up the idea of purchasing it. Only a few powerful martial artists who had survived the Four Tribulations, along with Yi Chen, were still considering it. You said this item could withstand attacks from anyone below the divine venerable realm. The combat power you tested just now was only at the level of a lower god king. May I try it too? A young man in a brocade robe spoke up. The vendor smiled. Sure. Go ahead. After saying that, he tossed the ragged cloth directly to the young man in the brocade robe. In this trading hall managed by the martial artists from the Southern Territory King Mansion, he wasn't worried about this martial artist running away with the item. The young man in the brocade robe caught the ragged cloth, suspended and twisted it in midair. Then he pinched a spell with his hand, and a black palm-sized puppet appeared in front of him. Next, the black puppet lunged fiercely at the ragged cloth. Its terrifying killing force charged towards it. Even Yi Chun was taken aback upon seeing the combat power emitted by this black puppet. This black puppet, in fact, exhibited a combat power even stronger than his own icebound puppet, reaching the level of an upper god king. Clearly, this young man in the brocade robe had an extraordinary identity, capable of possessing an upper god king level puppet. This deepened Yi Chen's sense of caution. It seems that, owing to that Supreme Divine Institute's Divine Maiden Long Li, even more capable martial artists than anticipated have been drawn here. Not only do I need to be wary of those divine kings, but also of powerful true gods with various means. Yi Chun knew that if he were to truly face the brocade-robed young man using all his means, he probably wouldn't win and could only escape with a life-saving charm from the East Territory King. It looked like there wouldn't be a shortage of true gods like him arriving in the Nine Suns' ancient land. However, thinking about it, it made sense. His icebound puppet was left by an upper god king, and there were countless martial artists in the divine kingdom surpassing upper god kings. Not to mention earth divine venerables and heavenly divine venerables, there were many immortal divine venerables. For their kin or those close to them, acquiring one or two powerful treasures was not a big deal. Although divine venerable level treasures might not be activated by true gods, it's likely that many true gods with significant backgrounds could possess a few upper god king level treasures. This only made Yi Chun all the more eager to improve his own abilities. Without a few powerful trump cards, he might not even know how he died. As Yi Chen's mind wrestled with this, the powerful killing force from the black puppet, controlled by the brocade-robed young man, had already struck the ragged cloth. What followed was a shocking development. Even though the black puppet's killing force reached the level of an upper god king, it still failed to pierce through the ragged cloth. It seemed the vendor's claims weren't false. This piece of cloth couldn't be penetrated unless by a divine venerable. After testing it, the brocade-robed young man retracted the black puppet and also returned the ragged cloth to the vendor. He spoke. "This item indeed serves as a very good defensive piece. However, it's a pity that it's too small to be of practical use. More like a collectible memorabilia. 1,000,000 black divine coins. I'll take it." Whoosh. The young man, stating he'd merely collected as memorabilia, was still willing to spend 1,000,000 black divine coins, leaving many true gods beside him gasping in amazement, their expressions filled with envy. It became clear to the crowd that this brocade-robed young man, who casually offered 1,000,000 black divine coins and possessed a puppet with the attacking power of an upper god king, must have an extensive background and considerable wealth. Many had already been discouraged from buying the ragged cloth, which was only the size of a palm and seemed miraculous but ultimately useless, especially for 1,000,000 black divine coins. Seeing that this young man with an evident background was interested in the item deterred them even further from bidding. For a moment, the voice of the brocade-robed young man was the only one bidding in the hall. "Is there only this fellow who wishes to purchase this item?" The vendor seemed indifferent, content as long as someone bought it for above his reserve price. "If no one else is bidding, then I'll sell it to this fellow." At this moment, Yi Chun, who had been silent all along, let out a reluctant sigh and finally said, "I'm also interested in this object. I'll offer 1.1 million black divine coins then." Yi Chun had been hesitating whether to bid or not, still considering how to use the ragged cloth. But Xiaojiu, who had remained quiet, had been staring at the cloth for a long time, and then discreetly sent a message to Yi Chun, insisting that he must buy this cloth. Xiaojiu further mentioned that the ragged cloth seemed very similar to an extremely powerful object from her memories. If it was indeed that kind of object, then even if Yi Chun spent 10,000,000 black divine coins, it would be worth it. This, of course, made Yi Chun bid without hesitation. Even if the brocade-robed young man with a background wished to compete, Yi Chun was also ready to put up a fight. Chapter 678 Retreat in Alarm. Yi Chen's bid took everyone at the venue by surprise. At this moment, many formidable Nine Tribulations true gods had abandoned the idea of purchasing this rubbish cloth. And yet this youth, merely a Four Tribulations true god, still wanted to buy it? And to compete with the obviously well-connected young man in the brocade robe. Many were shocked by Yi Chen's boldness, while others viewed him with curiosity, trying to discern the origins of a youth who could casually offer more than 1,000,000 black divine coins while being just in the Four Tribulations realm. But after observing for a while, they couldn't find anything particularly special about Yi Chun. The young man in the brocade robe was also taken aback. He didn't expect that, after showing some of his capabilities, someone would still compete against him, especially a Four Tribulations true god youth. While the young man in the brocade robe was not very interested in the rubbish cloth, seeing it as merely a curiosity to collect and remember, Yi Chen's offer ignited his competitive spirit. "I bid 1,200,000 black divine coins," said the young man in the brocade robe, casting a glance at Yi Chun, speaking indifferently. Of course, Yi Chen had no idea about the young man's competitive thoughts. His only intention was to secure the piece of rubbish cloth and to examine it thoroughly with Xiaojiu. 1,300,000. Yi Chun spoke up again. "I bid 1,400,000. The young man in the brocade robe raised his voice. His gaze toward Yi Chun filled with a hint of anger. He came from a family of immortal divine venerables, although a collateral branch, and he had some wealth, but it was not vast. To call out a bid of 1,400,000 black divine coins for a piece of rubbish cloth, that was somewhat magical yet impractical. And knowing this wouldn't be the final price, he started to feel the pinch. 1,500,000, Yi Chun said, disregarding the fiery look from the young man in the brocade robe as he calmly raised the bid. As Yi Chun and the young man in the brocade robe successively raised their bids, the vendor nearby could hardly contain his joy. This rubbish cloth was passed down in his family. He and his ancestors had studied it for a long time without comprehending its purpose. It was useless to them. He was about to enter the Nine Suns' ancient land and had decided to sell it in order to acquire a heaven-reaching divine artifact to use. The current bid far exceeded his expectations. He was, of course, surprisingly delighted. While the vendor could hardly contain his glee, the young man in the brocade robe felt embarrassed under the public gaze. Looking at Yi Chun, he spoke with a threatening tone. "Are you really intent on competing with me?" Simultaneously with his words, he took out the black puppet again and started swinging it in his hand. Even though he wouldn't dare make a move inside the trading treasure hall, under the supervision of the Southern Territory King Mansion, the implication of his gesture was unmistakably threatening. Seeing the action of the young man in the brocade robe, Yi Chun couldn't help but laugh silently. However, in an instant, Yi Chen's mind flickered with an idea. With a gentle flip of his palm, the life-saving talisman left to him by the East Territory King appeared in his hand. The group of martial artists spectating nearby, upon seeing the young man's action, were just wondering how Yi Chun, a Four Tribulations true god youth, would respond. When they saw that Yi Chun also took out an object, a thought instantly crossed their minds. Could it be that this young man isn't afraid of the young man in the brocade robe and has a powerful trump card? Suddenly, dozens of attentive eyes around the stand focused on Yi Chen's hand, closely inspecting the item. When they saw the faint golden light emanating from Yi Chen's palm and the characters East Province inscribed on the talisman, many martial artists were somewhat puzzled. What is this? A talisman? Could it be a powerful talisman? These characters, East Province. Could it mean that this talisman has been passed down from the Divine Kingdom's East Province? While those unfamiliar with the talisman were still pondering, several individuals at the scene, upon seeing the talisman in Yi Chen's hand, had their expressions changed drastically. Experience tales with novel bin. Calm. Among them were the stall owner and the young man in brocade. This is a talisman from the Southern Territory King Mansion, and it's golden. It's rumored that only talismans personally crafted by the East Territory King are golden, and no one else in the East Territory King Mansion dares to use gold. Could it be that this talisman was made for this young man by the East Territory King himself? The stall owner, a nine tribulations true god, felt his heart pounding uncontrollably. The East Territory King, a famous figure in the divine kingdom, an overwhelmingly powerful sovereign realm expert. Who among the divine kingdom martial artists would not know, would not be aware? Such an entity, even the immortal divine venerable would kneel before. The youth bestowed with a talisman by him, what kind of powerful background must he have? The stall owner already felt so nervous he was nearly unable to breathe. At this moment, the brocade-clad young man was even more terrified, his face completely pale. This young man in brocade came from the Divine Kingdom's East Province, and his entire family's most powerful immortal divine venerable patriarch was under the jurisdiction of one of the East Territory King's four great generals. His patriarch had once received a silver-colored talisman from the East Territory King Mansion, bestowed by a great general. They celebrated with a grand feast for 3 days and nights, and even enshrined the silver-colored talisman in the most precious treasury of their family. The young man in brocade was all too familiar with talismans that circulated from the East Territory King Mansion. He had once heard his father mention, after the immortal divine venerable patriarch of their family got drunk, he let slip a truth, saying that if one day they could obtain a golden talisman personally given by the East Territory King, even death would be worth it. It would bring their family immense glory in the Divine Kingdom's East Province. Now, seeing that the young man he was competing against possessed a golden East Territory King Mansion talisman that even his family's immortal divine venerable patriarch didn't have, how could he not be shocked to the core? This young man, he has a talisman personally crafted by the East Territory King. What could his background possibly be? If the immortal divine venerable patriarch of his family knew that he dared to trouble a young man who was personally given a talisman by the East Territory King, then there would be no need for the East Territory King to act. His family patriarch would most likely tie him up himself and deliver him to the East Territory King Mansion for judgment. With this thought in mind, the brocade-clad young man no longer had any thoughts of competing with Yi-chun, and with a forced smile he said to Yi-chun, "This fellow Taoist, I'm no longer buying that scrap of cloth." After uttering those words, the brocade-clad young man didn't even look at Yi-chun and instantly ran off, disappearing without a trace. This scenario left the crowd of martial artists who were watching in astonishment. They hadn't expected that the young man, who had earlier been so high and mighty and obviously came from a powerful background, would, upon seeing the talisman in the hands of the young for tribulation's true god, flee in terror like a rat seeing a cat. By then, even if these martial artists didn't understand the true significance of the talisman in Yi-chen's hands, they could guess that this young man's background was probably 100 times more terrifying than that of the brocade-clad youth. Otherwise, the brocade-clad young man would not have reacted in this manner. Not just the brocade-clad young man, but even the stall owner was repeatedly smiling at Yi-chun, saying, "Fellow Taoist, since you've taken a liking to my piece of scrap cloth, then I'll just give it to you." Even a pleasing smile had crept onto the stall owner's face as he tried to ingratiate himself with Yi-chun. Chapter 679. Yi-chun hadn't expected that taking out the life-saving talisman given to him by the East Territory King would produce such a significant effect. Originally, he had just wanted to show the talisman to make use of the powerful aura left on it by the East Territory King, so the young man in the brocade robe with somewhat of a background might sense the formidable aura emitted by the talisman and become somewhat wary. Unexpectedly, the young man in the brocade robe seemed to have directly recognized the true origin of the talisman and fled at the mere sight of it. This caused Yi-chun to shake his head and smile, quite surprised by the outcome. It seems that many people directly recognize the talismans from Senior East Territory King, he mused. Find exclusive stories on Novelbin.com. I've kind of borrowed the tiger's might this time. Of course, Yi-chun was also very satisfied with this result. With the young man in the brocade robe scared off and no longer competing with him, that was all for the best. As for the stall owner's offer to give him the tattered cloth for free, Yi-chun would certainly not just take it without paying. He did not deem it worthwhile to be in debt to the stall owner for a bit over 1 million black divine coins. let alone tarnish the reputation of the East Territory King. There's no need to give it for free, just go with the agreed price. Yichun said as he directly took out the final bid of 1,500,000 black divine coins and handed it over to the stall owner. Seeing Yichun's demeanor, the stall owner certainly dared not refuse or say much else. He kept nodding his head, swept his hand, and gathered the stacks of black divine coins into his storage space. You are too kind, fellow Taoist. This tattered cloth now belongs to you. As he spoke, the stall owner even directly handed over the palm-sized blue tattered cloth to Yichun with great respect. Having finally gotten his hands on the mysterious tattered cloth, Yichun and Xiaojiu exchanged a smile. Yichun, when we get back, we'll study this tattered cloth thoroughly, Xiaojiu communicated to Yichun excitedly. If this tattered cloth really is that item, then you've made a huge profit. Hearing Xiaojiu continuously praise the marvels of the tattered cloth, Yichun grew even more curious about it. Then let's hurry up and find the items we need, and then head back to the inn to properly study this tattered cloth, he said. After securing the tattered cloth, Yichun left the stall and continued to look around the other areas. It wasn't until Yichun had walked far away that the stall owner finally let out a long sigh of relief. He even exclaimed, "This young man is quite extraordinary, indeed someone who has been given a golden talisman by Lord East Territory King. His spending is so generous. At only the 4 tribulations true god level, he could take out 1,500,000 black divine coins." The stall owner's words caused all the true gods who were still near the stall and hadn't left to be shocked. A person given a golden talisman by Lord East Territory King. These watching martial artists finally understood why the young man in the brocade robe ceased to contend and threaten after seeing the talisman in the hands of the young man, running away in such fear. It turned out that the talisman in the young man's hands was given by Lord East Territory King. The East Territory King, indeed. Even with a significant background, how could the young man in the brocade robe have a connection bigger than that of the East Territory King? As these martial artists looked towards the gradually disappearing figure of Yichun, their eyes were filled with astonishment. For the following period, Yichun continued to stroll through the trading treasure hall, which was massive, with an overwhelming number of martial artists setting up stalls. Even with just a cursory look, only paying detailed attention when sensing an interesting treasure, it took Yichun 3 full days to thoroughly go through the entire trading treasure hall. After that, Yichun left the trading treasure hall and returned to his room in the inn. As soon as he returned to the room, Yichun immediately set up prohibitions, completely sealing off the room. Then he took out all the treasures he had picked from the trading treasure hall. At this moment, both Xiaojiu and the little monkey were extremely excited, staying by Yichun's side, looking at these treasures. Among these treasures, besides the 300,000 divine stones Yichun purchased to operate the ice seal puppet, the majority were pills and spirit grass that could help increase true qi and assist in raising his realm. With these pills and spirit grass, Yichun's time to strive towards the 5 tribulations true god could be much shorter. However, these pills and spirit grass weren't cheap, costing Yichun nearly 2 million black divine coins. Apart from a large number of pills and spirit grass, Yichun didn't care for ordinary treasures. The real treasure he chose to buy was contained within a brocade box. When Yichun opened the brocade box, inside were 9 fist-sized silver beads. These 9 silver beads were a one-time attack treasure known as Divine Thunder Pearls. The Divine Thunder Pearls were made by a powerful upper god king who collected the divine thunders from a divine tribulation, and their attack power was extraordinarily remarkable. Once the divine thunder pearls were launched, it was very likely that even the slightly weaker upper god kings could be blasted into injury or death. Of course, these 9 divine thunder pearls were also very expensive, costing Yichun a full 5 million black divine coins. Yet, having such an ace up his sleeve, Yichun would not feel helpless when entering the 9 Suns' ancient land again against true gods like the young man in the brocade robe who had taken out a puppet with the combat power of an upper god king. Even if it was not possible to kill them outright, inflicting serious injuries was still doable. After all, Yichun couldn't always rely on the life-saving talisman given by the East Territory King to scare others. Once or twice could work, But if he encountered someone unyielding, wasting the life-saving talisman would be a pity. Pills and spirit grass, divine thunder pearls, and the expenses for buying divine stones and the tattered cloth left Yi Chun with little of the 10 million black divine coins he obtained from the ice-sealed divine king. Indeed, whether it's cultivation or adventuring, the expenses are massive. Without black divine coins, I can't even think of buying treasures or using divine arrays to teleport. It seems I need to earn more black divine coins when I get the chance. Yi Chun sighed to himself. Although it pained him, Yi Chun was quite satisfied with the treasures he bought with his black divine coins. Especially the tattered cloth that Xiaojiu kept reminding him about. Yi Chun's gaze finally settled on that tattered cloth. He intended to study it thoroughly. This cloth had to have some amazing secrets for Xiaojiu to believe so firmly in its extraordinary value. Xiaojiu, you said this tattered cloth is similar to something very powerful in your memory. What is it? Could it really be, as some have guessed, a fragment of a divine venerable's divine robe from some important figure? Yi Chun asked, holding the palm-sized blue tattered cloth, examining it, and directing his question at Xiaojiu. Off to the side, Xiaojiu, too, blinked rapidly and said telepathically, Xiaojiu, this tattered cloth cost Yi Chun 1.5 million black divine coins, so if it's not precious, he'll definitely have to give you a beating. You little fart monkey. Xiaojiu, riled by the monkey's comment, pinched its cheeks hard until the monkey begged for mercy and let go. Afterward, Xiaojiu stopped clowning around with the monkey and became serious. Xiaojiu looked carefully at the cloth, her eyes growing brighter as she looked until she finally said excitedly to Yi Chun, those people who guessed this is a fragment of a divine venerable's divine robe are underestimating this cloth. If the divine venerables knew its origin, I'm afraid many of them would fight over it. If I'm not mistaken, this might be an extreme heavenly object that hasn't been fully cultivated to success. Extreme heavenly object? Hearing this term from Xiaojiu, Yi Chun was startled. He had heard of heaven-reaching divine artifacts at the God King level, mysterious heavenly divine artifacts at the divine venerable level, and ultimate heavenly artifacts at the sovereign level. And with the term extreme heavenly, it must be related to the sovereign level treasures. Could it be that this tattered cloth had something to do with sovereign level treasures? This gave Yi Chun a huge shock. If it was related to sovereign level treasures, then its value was too great. How could it have ended up in the hands of that stall owner? Besides, if it really was a polar heaven treasure, how could divine venerables possibly blast through this cloth? Even an immortal divine venerable would likely be unable to blast through a polar sky-level treasure. Yi Chun voiced all his doubts to Xiaojiu. The little monkey beside them was scratching its ears and cheeks, immensely curious. Xiaojiu smiled at Yi Chun and the little monkey. As I said before, this cloth is likely an extreme heavenly object that hasn't been completely nurtured. Because it isn't fully nurtured, it hasn't reached the level of polar heaven treasures, so it can only be considered an embryonic form of an extreme heavenly object. If it were fully nurtured, it would turn into a true polar heaven treasure that even powerful figures in the sovereign realm would scramble for. Of course, because it isn't fully nurtured, someone obtained it, and ordinary people can't recognize its magical properties. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been put up for sale. Hee, I have been imbued with countless pieces of knowledge by Lord Emperor Yen. I know a lot. Even as an embryonic form of an extreme heavenly object, others might not recognize it, but I certainly can. If it really is an embryonic extreme heavenly object, even if it hasn't reached the true wonders of an extreme heavenly treasure that can restrain divine venerable level powerhouses, fully unleashing its divine might would certainly provide you, Yi Chun, with an exceptionally powerful method. At least restraining many God King level powerhouses shouldn't be a problem. In the future, further nurturing it into a true extreme heavenly treasure could also allow you to truly possess an extreme heavenly object. Yi Chun was deeply moved by Xiaojiu's words. Then let's quickly test whether this is the embryonic form of that extreme heavenly object. Yi Chun, looking at the cloth. The stall owner and that brocaded youth both tried and couldn't pierce this cloth with God King level combat power. How should we research it? Yi Chun asked Xiaojiu. Xiaojiu winked at Yi Chun and smiled gently. as an embryonic form of an extreme heavenly object which hasn't been properly nurtured. Others who get their hands on it can't fathom its secrets. Using physical combat power, true chi combat power, or even divine soul combat power will be utterly useless against this object. But Yi Chun, you are extraordinary. Your stellar power is an exceptionally powerful force. Others may not see it, but having been filled with countless pieces of knowledge by Lord Emperor Yen, I know this power is no ordinary thing. I suspect that your stellar power can definitely break this cloth, revealing its true mystery. Stellar power? Hearing Xiaozhou's words, Yi Chun was moved. Indeed, his stellar power was something that other martial artists did not possess. This was the power contained within the stellar divine diagram of the primordial chapter of the primordial star scripture left behind by the ZG Star Lord. Yi Chun had already witnessed the countless wonders of this stellar power, which could even merge with divine soul power to drive the divine soul heaven-reaching art, 9 Swords of Annihilation. He hadn't expected that now even this embryonic extreme heavenly object could be opened up. Let's give it a try then. Yi Chun extended his finger, and vast stellar power began to condense at the tip. Then, Yi Chun gently swiped his finger across the cloth. Something astonishing happened. This cloth, which even upper god king level black puppets had been unable to pierce, split open directly under the gentle touch of Yi Chun's finger, which was condensed with stellar power. Chapter 680 Star Blue Divine Garment and Gathering. What shocked Yi Chun even more was that, when he applied the stellar power to tear open this ragged cloth, he saw dazzling divine patterns shining through the torn fabric. Lines etched in patterns, as if they contained great secrets. They were somewhat similar to some of the formations in the 9 volumes of Formation Array that Yi Chun had contemplated, but were countless times more mysterious and extraordinary than the formations in the 9 volumes of Formation Array. When Xiaozhou saw the shimmering divine patterns in the torn cloth, he quickly said to Yi Chun, remember these patterns. It's not just these patterns. If you continue to tear open the cloth, more will be revealed until all the patterns are fully displayed. It's these complete patterns that are the truly precious part of the extreme heavenly object. Once you fully comprehend these patterns, you will be able to truly harness the nascent form of this extreme heavenly object. Even a divine venerable who could tear open this cloth wouldn't be able to make the divine patterns of the extreme heavenly object appear. Your stellar power is indeed very useful. As Xiaozhou spoke, Yi Chun also discovered that after he tore open the cloth and revealed the glittering and extraordinary patterns, it slowly healed over time, returning to its original state. When Yi Chun used his stellar power to tear at the cloth again, and after the cloth split open, new brilliant divine patterns appeared within the gap. These divine patterns were completely different from the previous ones. Just as Xiaozhou said, still more of these mysterious patterns could be revealed, clearly indicating that there were many more. Xiaozhou, you know too much, praised Yi Chun, and with a flip of his hand, a jade plaque appeared in his palm. Then, using his divine sense, Yi Chun engraved all of the patterns he saw onto the jade plaque. After that, Yi Chun continued to tear open the cloth, watching for new divine patterns. Time and again he tore it open. The radiant patterns appeared and then merged back together. This process lasted a full 10 days. Yi Chun tore open the entire piece of cloth more than 1,000,000 times until he saw the divine patterns hidden within repeat 3 times. Only after he had truly engraved all of the divine patterns did he finally stop collecting them from the cloth. Because by then, he had completely memorized all the divine patterns of the nascent form of the extreme heavenly object. Recording the divine patterns was only the first step. Next, what was more important was to dissect these divine patterns and truly comprehend them to really harness this nascent form of the extreme heavenly object. Thus, the following period was spent by Yi Chun delving into the true understanding of the countless divine patterns. Time passed. Yi Chun sat motionless in the room. Xiaozhou and the little monkey were also quietly guarding beside Yi Chun. 3 days before the opening of the 9 Suns' ancient land, Yi Chun, who had been sitting for a long time without moving, suddenly opened his eyes.
Yi Chun.
Seeing Yi Chun open his eyes, Xiaojiu and the little monkey were excitedly by his side. Have you comprehended the divine patterns? Both Xiaojiu and the little monkey asked Yichun with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Yichun smiled and nodded at Xiaojiu and the little monkey. Yichun, you are amazing. Xiaojiu's cheeks flushed with excitement. It's very difficult to grasp the essence of the nascent form of the extreme heavenly object, and you've done it so quickly. The little monkey also excitedly waved its little fists. Yichun smiled gently at Xiaojiu and the little monkey's excitement. The formations in the 9 volumes of formation array that I've understood have helped me comprehend the divine patterns in the nascent form of the extreme heavenly object. These divine patterns actually describe how to use the material of this nascent form of the extreme heavenly object to truly construct a polar heaven treasure. Of course, this understanding is just my speculation. It needs to be tested to be sure. As he spoke, Yichun stood up. Try it right now. Xiaojiu and the little monkey stood nervously beside Yichun. Yichun looked directly at the ragged cloth in front of him, then reached out and grabbed it. This time, the ragged cloth, which couldn't be taken by divine sense, was directly captured by Yichun's telekinetic grip. Seeing this scene, Xiaojiu and the little monkey exchanged glances, their eyes flashing with excitement. After Yichun telekinetically captured the cloth, he hesitated no longer and began to pinch out one after another mysterious spell. These spells were strikingly in harmony with the mysterious divine patterns that Yichun had observed within the cloth. Clearly, they were the spells to manipulate the nascent form of the extreme heavenly object. And as Yichun's hand moved with the spells, the palm-sized piece of blue cloth began changing from stillness to constant transformation. The blue cloth swelled and shrank, then spun rapidly at times. Your next journey awaits at Novelbin. Calm. Finally, with a boom, a sound of explosion, the palm-sized blue cloth turned into a sky full of dazzlingly intense blue light. Upon seeing this blue light, Yichun's eyes brightened even more. He sped up the movement of the spells in his hands. Boom! 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 Under the manipulation of Yichun's spells, the blue rag turned into a sky full of splendid, extreme blue light, which began to converge at an incredible speed. Finally, it formed an extraordinarily divine robe radiating dazzling blue light to the extreme. This divine robe was exceptionally light and seemingly invisible, but the dazzling blue light it emitted was like the starry cosmos itself, with vast blue universes contained within and countless stars sprinkled throughout. What a divine robe! With a gentle beckoning of his palm, the blue divine robe flew directly onto Yichun's body and disappeared within his clothes. Yichun also felt a faint defensive force enveloping his entire body. Those secrets hidden within the divine patterns were indeed correct. This embryonic extreme heavenly object is actually a natural material for constructing a divine robe. This divine robe, if truly nurtured into a polar heaven treasure, will become a polar sky divine garment. Although it is still an embryo now, and the divine robe birthed from it has not reached the polar sky level, the innate defensive power of this extreme heavenly object embryonic material allows me to handle attacks below divine venerable battle power. What's more special is that, once this divine robe is truly nurtured successfully and I claim ownership, it can completely block divine sense detection. Even powerful divine venerables will not be able to detect this divine robe on me. Probably only existence at the venerable master level could detect it, but once I claim it, I can instantly retract it if someone probes, providing an additional defense against detection. With this divine robe, I have gained another trump card for my adventures in the 9 Suns ancient land. Even this divine robe might help me withstand heavenly tribulation and exert significant effort in the future. Yichun, sensing the magic of the divine robe, tried out its various extraordinary effects and nodded in satisfaction. However, to fully nurture this divine robe into a polar heaven treasure, according to those secrets of the divine patterns, I still need to collect quite a few items to refine into the robe, allowing it to evolve continuously. Those items are not easy to find. At the same time, Yichun began to ponder over the subsequent nurturing of this divine robe. I previously obtained a purple mist true garment, but as my strength has improved, the true god level purple mist true garment has become of little use. This even more powerful divine robe shall be called the Star Blue Divine Garment. In the end, Yi Chun named the divine robe. Xiaojiu and the little monkey who had been observing Yi Chun the entire time were completely stunned. The little monkey had never expected that a rag could transform into countless splendid blue lights, and then finally all disappear. It wasn't until Yi Chun revealed it again that it realized these blue lights had turned into a divine robe. Even Xiaojiu, though imbued with abundant knowledge by Lord Emperor Yen and understanding much, had never seen the true form of an extreme heavenly object embryonic form with her own eyes. She couldn't help but touch the divine robe that Yi Chun showed her, marveling repeatedly. Star Blue Divine Garment. That's really a good name, Xiaojiu said with a smile. In the following time, Yi Chun continued to stay in the inn, getting used to the newly acquired Star Blue Divine Garment, while also getting familiar with other techniques for his upcoming entrance into the Nine Suns Ancient Land. It was not until the second to last day before the opening of the Nine Suns Ancient Land, when the meeting time with City Lord Nye, Lin Shaowan, Zhao Luo, and others was due, that Yi Chun finally left the inn. On the west side of the Blazing Sun Divine City, atop the third floor of a building known as Danfeng Tower, City Lord Nye, Lin Shaowan, and others were waiting on this floor. Besides Zhao Luo, there were 7 other true god men and women. These 7 true god men and women were related to City Lord Nye as family or descendants. However, their strengths were not particularly high. The strongest was only an 8th tribulation true god, while the weakest even included a 4th tribulation true god girl. This time, with the Blazing Sun Divine City having 110 slots to enter the Nine Suns Ancient Land, they had a chance to venture there. At that moment, these 7 true god men and women, looking at the bustling Blazing Sun Divine City, were also extremely excited. We can enter the Nine Suns Ancient Land tomorrow. The number of warriors pouring into Blazing Sun Divine City is simply uncountable now. I heard that the first goddess, Long Li, from the Supreme Divine Institute will also come to the Nine Suns Ancient Land tomorrow. We will be able to see Goddess Long Li. The excited expressions of these 7 true god men and women caused City Lord Nye and Lin Shaowan to smile gently. However, Lin Shaowan's gaze was constantly searching around, obviously waiting for someone. When Lin Shaowan had swept her gaze around for what seemed the 100th time, she suddenly stood up, looking excitedly towards the east. Yi Chun is here.
Yi Chun.
Is that the miraculous young man who helped you, Sister Wan, secure our places for the Nine Suns Ancient Land? The 7 descendants of City Lord Nye also hurriedly stood up to look in the eastern direction. At that moment, they directly saw a young man with flowing black hair and exceptionally bright eyes, smiling and nodding at them as he flew over. This young man, of course, was Yi Chun, who had left the inn to meet with City Lord Nye and the others. Yi Chun immediately landed on the 3rd floor of Danfeng Tower, and smilingly said to City Lord Nye, Lin Shaowan, and Zhao Luo, City Lord Nye, Lin Shaowan, Zhao Luo, we meet again.